And today's livecast is actually being broadcasted on YouTube. You can go to the Brand Innovators page and subscribe and tune in right there as well. The last thing that I will share is that we want to thank our official technology partner, Cisco WebEx, for powering today's livecast. They've been an awesome partner, and we're so glad to have them on board. So I'm just a brief guest on today's show because your real MC is fabulous. She's a good friend of ours here at Brand Innovators. Her name is Kyla Jacobs, and she is the EVP of Marketing and Growth for North America, WPP. Kyla is responsible for WPP's marketing and growth in its largest market, working closely with the company's agencies such as Ogilvy, Gray, Group N, to name a few. In this role, she helps lead WPP's global marketing partnerships and driving client growth. With over 20 years of experience, Kyla is a true global marketer, having worked around the world. She's helped modernize many of Fortune 500 companies, as well as work closely with challenger brands that are disrupting their categories. Please welcome to the stage, Kyla Jacobs.
Thanks, Lauren. Good to see you, and thank you for that great introduction. It's great to be here today. We've got a jam-packed session today under a great theme. So great to see everyone. So we are going to welcome our first set of speakers. We are joined today by Adam Pierno, who is the Associate Vice President of Marketing Strategy for Arizona State University. In his role, Adam actually leads affinity platforms, brand partnerships, and media, and is actually an author. So his first book, Underthink, is used to teach strategy at universities, global agencies, and Fortune 100 companies. He also has a new book out at the moment called Specific, so I must look both of those books up. Welcome, Adam. This session is also moderated by Scott Harkey, who is the founder and managing partner of OH Partners. So we are going to kick off straight away. Welcome to Adam and Scott. Welcome to the stage.
Thank you so much, Kyla.
Welcome. Over to you.
All right. So this was super random, but I love it. Or maybe it wasn't. Maybe Brand Innovators is that good. But to be able to moderate a fireside chat with Adam, who I've known
You there, bud? You're slowing down on me. Uh-oh. Scott, are you there? You're going in slow motion.
Hey, Adam. Can you hear me?
I can hear you, Kyla. How are you?
Good. Good to see you. We're just having a few technical difficulties with Scott, but we're sorting him out and getting him back into the mix. So while we wait for that, would love to hear a little bit more about your books that you've just you've had one book out, Underthink, and I see here another book that's just been released, I believe. So
yeah. So my first book, Underthink, it was written as a training handbook for marketing strategy people, mostly in agency world, because I came up as a creative and I was moved into a strategy role, building a team, founding a strategy team in a place that really didn't have it established with any processes in mind. So building that team, I started to realize that you could train people you could give them the old trial by fire, and agencies are fantastic at that kind of training. But I found my team wanting more training, and as I compiled all the information, I realized, oh, this is enough for a book. It turned into something that is still used at agencies, like you listed, thank you so much, and clients, and then other businesses around the country started using it, and now it's taught in a handful of schools, around a dozen. So it's been fantastic to watch it grow and to watch people reap value from it as they're new people to strategy and also people that are using it as a training tool for their teams.
Right. Great. How do you find the time?
That's a good question. Yeah, I just lots of caffeine, I think, is the
Yeah, right.
and you know how it is.
Yeah, exactly. Looks like we have Scott back. Scott, can you hear us?
I can. Can you see video or just audio right now?
Both.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Much better.
Thank you, guys. Sorry, we were having technical difficulties all morning. I'm like, what the hell? Of course. It's like any agency pitch you ever have. Of course, you're going to have technical difficulties right before you go into the pitch.
Murphy's Law.
Did you hear about the kind of how we met, Adam, and kind of that first part? Where did I get cut off there?
Yeah, it cut off right at the intro. I mean, you just said maybe Brand Innovators is that good, but yeah, from there it kind of died out.
Yeah. So what's so interesting about this, I do a lot of these Brand Innovators. I love Brand Innovators. And for someone in, Arizona to get paired up together is kind of, random. And then someone like Adam, who I've known in Phoenix in our home market for a long time and respected his work. And Adam knows this. I even tried to hire Adam because he's that freaking good. And then on top of that, to be paired with ASU, who I went to school there. They've been one of my first clients. And so couldn't be more excited. And the topic about purpose-driven marketing, as Adam and I talked earlier, just couldn't be more excited about it. So I do want to jump into it. Thank you for kind of going into your book. I was going to start in that world.
Thank you so much.
Let's jump in, Adam. Like, as a strategy guy, here's the question that I really wanted to ask. I want to say like 3 years ago at ANA, it was all like very data-driven analytics kind of marketing discussion. That was like kind of the overall theme is we have all this digital technology and we can target people, we can do this, we can do that, and it's all about data, it's all about analytics. And then like last year, pre-COVID, it was all back to like purpose-driven marketing. It was like the big theme of ANA and all the big CMOs. Strategically, and from a customer journey standpoint, like what are you seeing, and how do you make both worlds happy in terms of the analytics and purpose-driven marketing, and is it real and authentic, or do people get off on their own shit somewhere and not be true to the brand? That's my big loaded question. Solve it for us, bud.
Yeah, right. I just need 6 hours to answer that.
Yeah.
But you ask great questions. The overall, you brought up the yearly trend of switching gears. It was data driven and then it was purpose, but why can't we do both? Why do we have to choose those things is my question. So with what we're doing here at ASU, we have a purpose. Our charter is our purpose. Our charter is based around providing access to the most people we can for education in whatever form they want education. It does not necessarily mean a degree seeking learning experience. But why can't we also employ the latest in data? And I am so lucky to be at ASU right now, where we have a data program and knowledge and insights across the enterprise that are amazing. So we can use what we learn about the way people use the tools that we supply to improve what we do next time, to improve our approach, to improve our messaging, and to improve their satisfaction with not only their learning experience, but also with the brand. So a lot of these times when you see someone speaking, especially in a conference, in a breakout room, they have a single point of view, and it usually the logo on their polo shirt ties to the reason why. It's usually because they are selling you the solution. So data is the only way because they're a data provider or some kind of a third-party analysis tool. Well, I just don't think when you're inside an organization, I bet most of the people listening to this know that it's a pinch of data and it's a punch of this and it's a little teaspoon of that makes the marketing program work. And every organization has to choose what is going to work for its own goals and its own metrics that they use to deem success or failure in a program or overall in the life of a brand.
See, I love that. I think you're right. One of the biggest challenges I've seen in working with brands is trying to get an organization aligned on that one thing. Certainly we're all aware of branding exercises and branding firms and have done workshops and have worked on mission, vision, values. But how do you get that organizational alignment? How do you settle on a one thing and can you miss it? I mean, can you think there's this one thing and then all of a sudden you're like, it's not really like true to your brand. You're kind of off.
Yeah, I mean, Scott, you and I have both worked with brands that have missed it, and it weirdly, it's odd how that happens. It usually happens from taking an insular look and not looking outside and connecting the triangle between your business, the audience that you want to reach, and the ways you can reach them. So you're either using the wrong medium, you're sending the wrong message, or you're just too focused on yourself. And that's true in almost any situation. So for us here again at ASU, we have this purpose. Our charter is our purpose. We don't, luckily for us, that charter is established. We don't have to second guess that. Our brand is built on that. And we have a brand platform that is on top of the charter, but it is an expression. It brings to life what exists in that charter. And for us, that serves as a North Star. Now, if you're an organization that's as big as us, very few organizations are as big as Arizona State University, but if you were a Verizon, where I've worked, and you're sprawling enterprise around the world, and mostly around North America, it can be very easy to lose sight as business units are competing for resources and competing for growth, and individual business units, growth metrics and strategies. That's where I think you run into problems where you're bumping into each other, you're colliding in ways that cause trouble, where one unit's growth can harm another unit's growth in terms of understanding of the brand overall. And it's like, I thought they were that, but now they're saying they're this. And you see that with telecom, with all the mergers, AT&T and Time Warner, and that whole blended family.
Can you give our audience just we know this, but I mean, how big is ASU? I mean, just try to give people a perception, a concept of scale in terms of employees and students.
I believe this fall, I think we're looking at more than 100,000 and maybe up to 130,000 students that are enrolled, and that is on pace with our projected growth. We are more than 20,000 staff and faculty, so it is a huge enterprise. There's more than 100 units. They're not all academic units, most of them are, but there are also some administrative and business units as well. So it's a huge enterprise. We're spread over 4 campuses, and ASU Online is one of the leaders in online education in the country.
I mean, 20,000 employees. I mean, holy shit. I mean, that's like as big as SAP. I mean, that would be a huge, huge brand.
I'm here nearly 2 years, and when I first started, they said, well, in 3 months, you'll be able to have the confidence to know what you're doing. And then when I got to 3 months, they said, in about a year, you'll know what you're talking about. And then when I got to a year, they said, in about 2 years. So I'm finally there, and I can answer most questions with 85% confidence when someone asks me a question about ASU, because it's huge. There's new things happening all the time, and we're not standing still either.
No, for sure. And going back to kind of the process to develop authentic, strategically sound, purpose-driven marketing and checking yourself there. I mean, everyone has kind of a unique process that all is pretty similar when you dive into it. My favorite way of simplifying is, you have, the consumer and the customer journey, you have the brand, and then you have the competition. And then within those 3 circles, that middle unit point, what is that? And this isn't for mission, vision, value work as much as it is kind of campaign work. But ASU for a long time, I've loved, you seemed like ASU was really owning, the space of innovation, and, USC and Harvard and Stanford, they own their own kind of world, and ASU seemed to really find this insight that certainly was, probably on point with consumer, with brand and competition. They could own it. Is that still the direction that ASU is going? Or any thoughts to how that insight came about?
Yeah, well, the innovation message came from being ranked #1 in innovation by U.S. News and World Report. Now, that first one happened more than 5 years ago, but ASU has earned that ranking 5 years running. We're the only university to ever be awarded that distinction, #1 in innovation. So we ran with it. I mean, it fits in with our brand. Innovation is part of our brand platform, but it became the the proof point of the expression of our campaign. And in some cases, it's a headline. I mean, it's fantastic. I think intuitively, parents of prospects and prospective students who the kind that we want to attract that are interested in new ways of learning and really expanding their mind, understand the value of that innovation message. And it repositioned, it helped really give a good solid proof point that brought to life the ASU brand for those learners, and maybe some people that weren't familiar with ASU, or maybe think, being in a flyover state is a weird thing. And Scott, you can attest to that from your own business. You're almost automatically considered second tier just by virtue of not being on one of the coasts. And so when you mentioned MIT and Stanford, and we rank ahead of them in innovation, that's amazing. So all of a sudden we were able to give some context to prospects to help explain, what is really happening here, enough that people were interested and look at the website and learn more about everything that's amazing that's happening at ASU. And we try to live those things every day.
Yeah. Wow. I love that. I couldn't agree more. Building a, agency business for 12 years and competing against coastal agencies, certainly understand, brand perception around that. But I think the world's changing. One thing that's interesting, I love how you talk about, there's kind of the brand platform and the purpose, and then there's potentially campaigns and insights that can bubble up, but as long as it's anchored down in the company's or the institution's purpose. And I think we've seen people do it wrong, where maybe they're off on another thing. And a great analogy I heard the other day on Joe Rogan, I thought it was really interesting, was they talked about celebrities now, finding kind of what their purpose-driven marketing initiatives might be, right?
Yeah.
And is it truly authentic, right? If you're X, Y, and Z celebrity and you're now, really interested in global warming and you're doing docs now on Netflix about global warming, is that really true and authentic to yourself? And I think there's examples of brands too that understand in a time where there's so many channels for content, and there's really no way to really get scale in an effective way from a media standpoint like you used to. So how do you get relevancy in a world where relevancy is currency?
Yeah.
And I think at times people can stretch for the wrong purpose initiative that might be a right consumer insight, might be the right competition insight, but it's not the right brand platform for them to pull into on content wise. Can you speak to that, or what are your thoughts on that? Because that's kind of what I'm seeing right now.
Can I speak to it? I wrote a book on it. My second book is called Specific, and it's just that exact thing. It's I don't think you actually knew that, but it is about
No, I didn't. Like, holy shit. Okay.
I
love it.
It is about how brands connect with their best audiences. You take the total pie chart of your audiences, you take the sliver, the 10% that if you had to get rid of the other 90%, you would be okay. You could rebuild your business around this 10%. And what are the authentic methods of communication that exist between you and them that they value and that helps them differentiate you from competitors, why they chose you? And I think you brought up celebrities, and you can use celebrities that are doing kind of PR-based purpose, where they're like, oh, I got accused of Ellen DeGeneres. I got accused of being mean, so now I'm going to do all these things that look like I'm being nice, right? I'm going to counter those things. And no disrespect to Ellen DeGeneres, I don't know any of that story except the headlines of it. But it's very mechanical. You can see what she's trying to do. It doesn't, the cynical factor jumps up very immediately. You go, well, that feels like it's a PR push, versus if she would have done it a year ago, some of these same things, we would have said, oh, that reinforces my opinion that she is a nice person, versus now she's trying to backtrack and counter. Here at ASU, at the time when, very early March, when we realized, oh, this is shifting, we're going to be working remotely, students will have to learn remotely around the state of Arizona. My children in middle and elementary school were being sent home to learn remotely for the first time. It was very weird and very scary for a lot of people. We here at ASU, in my unit and a unit that was stood up this winter called the Learning Enterprise, created ASU for You, which is a website of the most amazing collection of resources, most of them at no cost, that are just pieces of learning tools, resources, tips, full-on classes, direct access to faculty to give back to the communities that we serve. And what's so funny about it is people called and said, oh, you did this because of COVID-19. And it's like, no, we were already doing it. We just took a month off the timeline to get it out now so that these teachers that are in this position to all of a sudden teach 30 kids on a Zoom, and they never had to do that before, would have some resources. You know, Ask a Biologist has been an amazing, it's a resource on ASU for You, which has been an amazing resource for years. We just put it there so now people can find it in one centralized place. So it was about providing access. Now, somebody could say, oh, well, that could be a cynical point of view. They did that because of some PR reason. But in truth, it's part of our charter. It was already in process. We did that wholly as a way to say the communities we serve need us, and here's a digital tool we can give, which really it has a marketing component, it has a learning component, and it has a society benefiting component, which is all parts of what we do here. So it feels authentic to the constituents that we serve and that understand us the best.
I love what you're talking about. I mean, there's so many things to unpack here in terms of utility marketing, and
Exactly, yeah.
really, I think we're really bumping into PR and social of being a major point of brand relevance right now, and it is the channel, and it is the channel I get the most questions around in terms of brand marketers. And I think and I'm going to be a little critical of our industry, the advertising industry right now. I think when media and message isn't the main thing anymore, and we're understanding purpose, charity, relevancy, PR, and the world has certainly shifted, and it's not come up with a great campaign, buy a bunch of media, and sell product, right? It is so much more complex, and there's a lot of people out there ready to pounce if you do something stupid, which happens, and for us now, an idea that's not PR worthy, that's not socially relevant, that's not shareable, is not an idea that you could even consider on any other channels, right? And I think you bring a great point. Is I think people can go in the wrong direction because it sounds like a great idea and it will generate relevancy and buzz, but maybe it's not truly authentic to you. And it's not really putting your top 10% of your consumers at the forefront. I love how you said that. It's really interesting.
I was thinking about it yesterday in advance of this talk, and the way we train creative people to generate brand expression and generate creative ideas is to think big, come up with an idea that can cover a lot of ground and do what you said. So one idea that will feed all these channels, and we'll figure out the way it funnels into that idea. But what happens in an agency or the way a lot of brands think about creative expression is, well, we need a TikTok video, so let's write a brief for a TikTok video. We need a TV spot. I mean, I think I long for the days where I miss those days where TV could just solve a lot of business problems.
So much easier.
It can't anymore. But the creative team ends up getting a bunch of different briefs to come up with smaller slivers of these ideas. And when a consumer comes across 2 or 3 channels, let's say they hear a spot on Pandora, they see something on their Twitter feed, they see a banner ad or retargeting, they can tell it's disconnected or it's matching luggage, and they go, oh, okay, they copy pasted that into this. Or they go, well, that's not what they told me on this other channel. Why is this? These things aren't adding up to a bigger picture. They all have the same logo on them, is essentially how the purpose is being communicated with, either the cause that you're backing or something a little less meaty that you can dig into.
I love that. I couldn't agree more. And you've just hit a major pain point for an agency guy, and I know you're a former agency guy, and we've dealt with this where, our social media people and PR people are fighting with, the quote unquote traditional creative people And I really do think, it really almost should start with the brand strategy, the analytic people, the researchers, and even probably the social and PR people, and then actually go to the brief on the creative side. And I think sometimes it's strategy, creative, and then social and PR are an aftermath. And I think that's a huge mistake. Let me go. There's some great questions in here. Let me go to a couple, and I've done a few of these now, and I love just to get right into questions because I think it can. I know it's what's on a lot of people's minds. I like this. What brands do you look up to? What leaders in marketing do you admire?
Being at ASU, we're pretty lucky with some of the partners that we have. One of those is Starbucks, and I would say the way Starbucks behaves as a partner in the world to us, and how they treat what they call their partners, which are their internal staff and their employees, is amazing. They set a great example. I would say if you read headlines and you look at PR, there are times where everything doesn't go perfectly, but they lead with a vision, and they're striving to do the right thing. So it's impressive. That's a brand I always look up to. As far as marketing leaders that I look up to, I just think what they're doing at the combination of Burger King and their portfolio of brands, I don't know if it's working, but as a former creative, I love to see someone out there taking big swings. And it seems like every 45 days, Burger King comes with a new campaign that feels like the brand, expands my understanding of the brand, and does so in a way that I could make a case that it's driving an occasion. It's driving me to go to that, drive through and order something versus just kind of that sassy brand advertising that really doesn't pay off. But that's a brand that I feel like is doing both things and serving the brand and the retail experience at the same time.
Yeah. Damn, Burger King. I mean, I got a serious man crush on the CMO over there. And then of course, what Nike's doing comes up a lot. I love this because I know we both really want to develop our people. As leaders, you're always developing abilities. But what skills would you like your marketing team to develop this year? Good question. Whoever asked this question, great freaking question.
So specific skills for my team is more in depth. Last year I had everybody start working, get deeper into analytics, understanding, and the tools that we use here. Starting even with, GA and just understanding at an advanced level what is capable there. You can't do anything if you can't tell leadership how it performed. So knowing those things, but now moving into all of our data analysis tools, really giving people, it's when you train people to use a tool like Tableau and how to import data and how to sort the data and how to present the data, you are empowering them to make a case for what they believe or a case for what they see. And I think that is it's a critical thing that has to be done because especially in legacy organizations that have a lot of structure and a lot of silos, it can tend to fall on one group of people that are the data team or the research team in a way. Well, that doesn't really work. Everybody has to be contributing and being able to confidently make a case to that team, with that team, partnering with that team to say, hey, we tried this and I have to own it. I looked at the data myself and it didn't work. Here's what I think we could have done better based on what I saw. Or we did this thing and we invested very little money and I think I can make a case for investing more and I think it'll work even better. And if you can empower people with the training and the tools, then that should yield returns going forward.
How do you, this is what I struggle with. How do you get someone, because I think we all can do research, right? And I think there is great researchers, but how do you transition a skill of, because I agree with you, I think it starts with training yourself to be a researcher and understand how to use the tools and do research and put a lot of different, whether you're using Tableau or whether you're using Mintel data or whatever, bringing all these different quantitative, qualitative, things together into one platform. But then how do you transition that into finding the right insights? And then how do you develop your skill of presenting those insights in a credible way? Because I think that for marketers, for agency people, for strategists, for account people, I think that's the journey. How do they make that transition from doing research to finding insights and presenting insights credibly and accurately.
Yeah, and in the past, that's what separated the leaders from the people that work for the leaders, is that ability to synthesize the data and know what is the most useful insight on that page. What's the most meaningful insight that will drive business results, or what's the most meaningful insight that will drive brand results. I think there's a democratization. These tools, we have the tools, we have these pooled shares of data where we have them. We have restrictions here because of privacy rules, and we don't look at students. Our constituents are much broader range than that. How do you give people access to the information they need to become fluent in those languages of communicating, identifying an insight, and recognizing, being able to rank two insights and say, oh, this is an insight, but it's not as meaningful. It's not going to drive as much action as this will. Then when you give people those steps, they're able to climb up, and they're able to become positioned for a leadership role or advancing themselves. But even if, take that aside, if everybody takes one step up, the brand lifts, because everybody's now able to use these tools to think about how to advance the brand in a much more productive and concrete way. Oh, there are numbers. I can look at those numbers through these tools. Based on that, I yield an insight that drives a cyclical program versus, I want the brand to be better. Maybe we should use more gold than maroon. Like, well, yeah, that's a good guess. We'll try it.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I think, making sure that all marketing teams understand that strategy is a team sport. It's not that one person that does strategy.
Yeah.
I'm so tired of that mindset. But how do you play in a team atmosphere on strategy, and how do you make it a team sport? Is there a process for that?
Yes, there definitely is. And because of the shape of our unit here, we're 100-something people that are spread across creative disciplines, digital disciplines, marketing strategy, and then knowledge and insights. So like a lot of brand teams, we're working really hard to cover a lot of ground. So I need people to approach with strategy questions, strategy ideas, challenging strategies that we put forward and saying, well, I see what you're saying, but from this angle that I'm working in, producing the creative, let me tell you what I've experienced that contradicts what you're saying. Mm-hmm. That's really important. And the best leaders in strategy are the ones that are able to take that critique and turn it into something positive and constructive, and let that person feel appreciated, even if they are saying something that you don't agree with or something that is off, it may just be an anecdote. How do you make them feel included and welcome to keep giving that feedback? Because without that feedback, without those anecdotes, without that team pulling together, something always gets left behind. So you can advance all the goals of the business, all the goals of the brand, with more people pulling and more people thinking proactively about growth and about meeting those goals.
Love it. I've just put out there, if you have any other questions, we have about 7 to 10 more minutes. So feel free to ask some questions. I'm scrolling. I'm scrolling down, Adam, and I'm like, oh, a question comes in. Here's the. Don't answer the question, but here's the question. So someone's spoofing us. Tell Adam his beard is very professional, and I'm like, what kind of question is this? And then I look who asked it, Dan Santi. So good question, Dan. That is hilarious.
I'm trying to look like faculty. I am not a professor, but I'm trying. I have on my elbows as well.
You got an awesome beard and multiple books. You are the perfect professor, strategy, lead.
These glasses aren't even real. They're just for the part.
Yeah, we need to go catch up and grab some coffee at a hipster spot, and you need a little smoking vest.
We got cartels right over here. I'll see you later.
Yeah, let's go. This is what happens when you leave agency life and go brand side. What do you think? I know a lot of times on these calls you have agency people, you have a lot of people that service brands and agencies. I always love to ask this question because I just think we get it wrong as partners so many times, as these are an agency. Brands are building more capabilities in-house. ASU is a perfect example of that. What do partners need to do better? Are we in a specialization age? like, whether you're a media company, whether you're a research firm, what do we need to do? And you've been on both sides, so I'd love your perspective. Like, how are we screwing this thing up?
Great question. Nobody's screwing it up. Unfortunately.
Yeah, we are. We're screwing it up a little bit.
I like you taking ownership of it, but it's not all your fault, Scott. Something that's going on right now is we're doing work on our own brand platform. And early in that, we conduct research on a regular basis to test it, confirm it, that make sure that the brand platform is still resonant. And one of the decisions we made in this cycle was, hey, let's involve the agency, even though we have the capabilities to do this internally 100%. We said, let's involve the agency so that they are onboarded while we're doing the research, they're participating, they're leading in some parts, so that they are able to go back and, the people that are working on this project will have the vision that they can communicate in real time. And working on the agency side in my career, there's no worse feeling than feeling like you're playing catch up with your clients. When you feel like the relationship is really solid is when you know what the client's problem is, what their challenge is, when you bring them ideas proactively and they say, wow, we were just talking about this. We needed a solution for this. I think where agencies go wrong is waiting for the call. And if you're a specialized agency, it is very easy to say, oh, we're just the research partner, so we're just going to focus on the research. That is dangerous. That is a way to not get any more calls from that client who says, they do the research, but they never tell us X, or they never offer this, or they never partner with our other agencies or vendors. And for agencies, I think it's about expanding the relationship laterally. So if you are a provider of one service and an agency has 5 other providers, figure out how to engage with those partners. I've never heard a brand say, do less work for me. Think about my business less. I don't need it. So if you're the research partner, for example, and you talk to the agency of record and you start comparing notes and saying, oh, here's some other research we've done that might support what you guys are working on. You can show added value. You also get the benefit of learning from the agency what some of the problems and challenges are. And then if you just say, hey, we don't need to all 60 groups here be in the meeting, but if you can just put a couple of our slides in your deck and let us know how it goes. Be visible as part of the solution, as opposed to sitting there waiting for the phone to ring or that email to come in. Nobody's calling on phones anymore, I don't think. And waiting for that next project request.
Love it. We have another question here. I like to go to questions. I do think if you could, towards the end, also talk about kind of like what's the in takeaway you want us as marketers to understand in terms of purpose-driven marketing. Let's go there. There is a good question about how young professionals' marketing roles are evolving, especially this year with COVID. I think that's a good question too, but we only have a few minutes. We need to figure out, I'd like an in takeaway on purpose-driven marketing, but that is a good young professional question. Thank you, Govind Sood, for that question. So I don't want you to feel like I'm avoiding anybody, but I do want to make sure we're driving home the last pointer on purpose-driven marketing.
Yeah, so the key thing is to be, if you're not founded on a purpose and you are using purpose as a marketing mechanism, be honest with yourself. That is okay. It is also okay for a business's purpose to make shareholders money. That's also okay if you're honest about it. If you're using purpose as a mechanism, as Scott said, an idea that will yield PR and positive social media buzz and energy, there's nothing wrong with that. However, if it is not authentic to how people understand the brand, don't do it. If you're not sure, don't do it. Do the research first to confirm this is how people see us, and based on how they see us, that brand becomes a prism. And everything that goes through that prism shoots a light. And if the purpose is not in the path of that light, it is wrong for you. So you have to figure out, how do you take what people already know and love about you? And again, I would focus on either those 10% of your best customers or the people just on the shoulders of that you're trying to bring in, and identify what purpose can we serve in a meaningful way and actually serve it, that these people will appreciate, understand, and join us in serving. If all those things are true and line up, you will have a much better recipe for success. If you are just picking something out of the air, choosing something because the CEO thinks it's cool, or you're not really sure why, but you've read about the buzz of purpose-driven marketing, you could be entering some choppy waters. So get your crisis PR team on the line. Situation.
Thank you, Adam. No, I love it. Well said. I see Kayla jumping on here too. I couldn't agree more with you. And I think you summed up, the challenge and the opportunity and kind of the major watch out kind of things that could happen. So I'll turn it back over to Kayla over at WPP. Thanks, Adam.
Great to see you, Scott.
Later, bro.
Thanks, Scott. Thanks, Adam. Great first session. Thanks for that. And I also just love the point about authenticity. I mean, no matter what type of brand, no matter what type of category, we always start coming back to that. So I also love the comment, Adam, that, no one's ever told you to do any less work, which I was thinking, no one's ever said do less work.
Especially not right now. I don't think anybody's saying, like, let's leave the agency alone. They're busy.
Exactly. So thanks so much for kicking us off. It was a great session. Thanks.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Of course. So we're on to our next session in a moment. Just a quick reminder to our audience that we've just kicked off, so we've got tons of other great sessions for the afternoon. So make sure you send your links to any friends and colleagues and have them join us for the rest of the afternoon. We've got our next fireside chat coming up. We are going to be joined by Harriet Sietler. Harriet is the EVP and Chief Brand Officer at Course Hero. She leads the shaping and delivery of Course Hero's core objective to be the trusted learning destination for both students and educators. And before coming to Course Hero, she spent the last 25 years in marketing for Oprah Winfrey as an Emmy award-winning CMO for OWN, the Oprah Winfrey Network, and for Harpo Studios. So a huge welcome to Harriet to the stage. Hi there. And today her session will be moderated by Dalton Dornay. She's the Chief Marketing Officer. So welcome to both Harriet and Dalton. Over to you.
Thank you. Hi.
Hi.
Hi, Harriet. Great to see you again.
How are you? How are you doing, Dalton? Thanks, Kara.
Great. Thanks. So for everyone who's joining us, I had the pleasure of briefly meeting with Harriet last week. So I've gotten a little bit of an advanced start on getting to know her, and I'm really excited for our session and some of the things that she's going to share. I'm going to dive right in. Harriet, one of the things that you said last week when we met that I just loved was that every brand is a purpose-driven brand. And as CMO myself, I was like, yeah, because if you don't stand for anything, you don't really have much of a brand. But over the course of your career, you've worked with some of the world's strongest brands like MTV, ESPN, Oprah Winfrey. It really doesn't get stronger or better than that, right? So when you first
Go ahead. Go ahead with the question. Sorry.
When you first get in, like, how do you get started? Some of them may have a purpose already. How have you dug in and helped define the purpose?
I think as we've talked about a little bit during the course of our initial conversation, purpose, I think, really comes from the relationship you have with your viewer, audience, consumer, customer. And, to me, I have always been lucky enough to be involved in companies that have a very strong emotional relationship with their consumer. And, I think that is first and foremost, any purpose-driven company or any company's purpose is to build that emotional connection. And out of that emotional connection, you understand what it is your consumer wants from you, what it is your consumer perceives in you, and how to continue to build the positive and deeper parts of the relationship between your brand and your consumer. So I would say the most important thing that you can do in building a brand or a purpose-driven brand or going from one brand to another is listen. I think it's probably the most important thing any marketer can do, and it is the way to be the most true to the brand and the consumer.
one of the things that I know you said was that you've really got to be it. You can't just say it. You've got to actually live it and do it. How do you bring that purpose to life throughout the organization so that it goes from being something that you're putting a stake in the ground and saying to actually doing?
I actually think for things that really want to be driven by purpose, it's almost it's a question of knowing who you are and knowing what it is you stand for, building that in the culture of the company, and making sure that everything that you do with the brand, every decision that you make, is consistent with the culture and with the values of the company and the brand that you intend to be. So, I think it really is about being very, very clear and deeply committed to who you are, and being consistent about that in terms of who you hire, who you make as a partner, who you don't hire, who you don't make as a partner, who you say yes to, who you say no to, what you say yes to, what you say no to, and reminding yourself of those core values in every decision that you make. And until it becomes part of your DNA. As one of the founding people at MTV, we sort of grew up knowing kind of what was and what wasn't MTV. There was I think I might have told you this sort of cliche phrase, but you can't say you're cool if you're MTV. You have to just be it, right? You can't say that you are, super knowledgeable about sports if you're ESPN. You just have to be it. If you're working with somebody like Oprah, you can't say we're trustworthy. You can't say we understand women. You just have to do it. You have to be it. You have to represent. And I think that the companies that are most successful at having that purpose and imbuing the whole company with a purpose, it then extends out. There's a halo effect that your viewers, your consumers, your customers feel that. They feel that authenticity. They feel the sort of extra added touch that there is, that emotional connection that your employees have, and people want to be part of that.
Yeah, it's so true. I think, the relationship between authenticity and purpose is so interesting. And if you don't have that walking of the walk, it can really blow up. And, the perfect example today that's super relevant is the Ellen Show, and not to pick on her, but she's built this incredibly powerful brand based on kindness. And when reports surface that, hey, that may not be reality, that's pretty damaging. I mean, can she recover as a brand when the brand purpose or promise has not been delivered like that?
I would guess that they are in pretty serious crisis communications sort of mode. And, unfortunately, I think at the moment, there's enough kind of chatter in the system on both sides that it makes it more complicated. I think, she's going to have to be extremely humble and extremely sensitive, empathetic, responsive in a very, very significant way to pull that back, only because I think, if this was the first time that this bubbled up, it would be manageable. And I think it was manageable the first time that it bubbled up. The fact that it is kind of coming back with some velocity at this point just creates a deeper problem. I think she's beloved. I think she and the show is beloved. It's a perfect example, as we just talked about telling the truth and being honest. And if people sniff out that you're not being honest, it has an impact. It has an impact. Again, you can't say you're kind and sort of do kind things out there and then not be a kind person in real life. So, there's a really important piece of integrity that I think, whether or not you're doing something philanthropic, whether you're doing something that is specifically purpose-driven, again, having that set of values and staying true to a set of values, and reinforcing and modeling and expecting a level of authenticity and integrity, I think is critical to the success of any brand, especially a purpose-driven brand.
Yeah, yeah. I think what was interesting to me earlier this year in the era of COVID and the pandemic is a lot of brands came out with messages of support at the onset of this time period. Early March, kind of moving into April. This "we're in it together," and then it kind of evolved, and you started to see some getting into what I would call gimmicky, with like separating their logo for social distancing and things. It's hard to walk that line when there's such a big everyone needs to respond to. How do you drive
Right.
authenticity and be authentic but stand out still?
Well, I'll tell you what we did. We're an ed tech platform that has over 40 million pieces of study guide and study support resources for college students, and it was really clear that students were being disrupted in the most massive way, as were educators. And we knew we needed to do something meaningful, and we knew we needed to do it quickly. And we had been looking at the possibility of helping students with emergency aid in the fall. There are many students who are one flat tire away or one, broken laptop away from having to drop out of school. The typical college student is not really that 4-year sitting on the quad Ivy League type student. The average college student is 26 years old. A huge percentage of students are working 2 or 3 jobs in order to actually be able to afford to go to college. They're supporting families, they're raising kids. So we knew that there were already tremendous stresses on students, and we acted very quickly to say, let's take the emergency aid program we were exploring and let's just launch it. And we went out to our mailing list to about 1.5 million students and said, we're committing $200,000 to this. We're building it right now as we speak. If you need emergency aid in some way, please give us your information, and as soon as this is ready to go, we'll let you know. If you want us to get back in touch with you, tell us your name, your email, your school, and we ask them to answer 4 or 5 questions. What do you need most in terms of aid? And within 48 hours, we had over 17,000 responses. So we could see really quickly that the need was dire, and we more than doubled our commitment. We moved our commitment up to $500,000, and we started working immediately with universities, with sort of organizing organizations for universities, for community college, for the research universities, and we were able through university financial aid organizations to get somewhere in the neighborhood of $350,000 out to over 1,000 students in a matter of weeks. And what we heard from the university partners was, you got to do this, and you got to do this fast, and especially you want to be concerned about like the DACA people and, people that weren't being helped by the federal aid. And the fact that we did this with no other ulterior motive except just to tell our students, like, we get it, we hear what you need, and this is what we're doing for you. We also opened up our library for free questions and answers and textbook solutions to students to get them through finals, et cetera. And then we did the same thing for educators who are facing the same level of challenges. So, we started doing pop-up seminars so educators could share with each other. How do they learn how to do assessments online? How do they try and take their coursework online? And we opened up the entire Coursera library to any verified educator. So we were really mindful of not just saying something, but doing something, and then continuing to communicate with educators, continuing to communicate with students, letting them know what we were doing, and really building a sense of listening and continuing to build our commitment. And I think that it has served us well by making a few responsive, unselfish, proactive decisions. I think we were able to demonstrate to both our educators and our students that we're paying attention, that we're not just talking the talk, we're walking the walk, and that's very much what we intend to continue doing. And particularly where your consumers are being hit, you got to put your money where your mouth is.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, what a time to be in online education, honestly, and feel like you're having a huge impact. If only all the elementary schools, I'm sure speaking for every parent on the line, had Course Hero as well, we'd be so grateful. One of the things I'm interested in is you've had, this long career in networks and now you're at Course Hero. What excited you about making that transition? Obviously, it was very timely for the industry, but you jumped ship before that. What kind of led you down this path?
Well, I look at the kinds of people that I worked with at Oprah and at MTV. We were very, at MTV, people were very driven and very passionate about music. At ESPN, people were very passionate about sports. At Oprah, we were very passionate about helping people live their best lives. I actually wrote that line. And it came from not a campaign, not a level of marketing thinking, but out of reflecting on what is it that we're really doing. Again, there's a level of authenticity. It didn't come from trying to maneuver something. It came from listening to our consumers. This was actually Oprah.com, and then it turned into the brand for Oprah. It came out of what we really were hearing from people and what we truly wanted to do. When I think about places where the people in the field are that passionate and that honestly committed and selfish about what they do, education is that way. I mean, I have not yet met an educator who isn't first and foremost concerned with helping students. And there's so many ways to be innovative and to bring the creativity that exists in the classroom and that kind of relationship that should exist between students and educators to try and lift that up and shape it and have it step up in a way that it helps to expand the business and serve our educators and our students. That to me was a really important and purposeful, creative and strategic challenge. And I'm happy to say that I spent a long time getting to know the people at Course Hero, and in terms of the integrity check and the authenticity check, I felt very, very good about that. And I'll say the word that I think is most important in all of this is trust. I really felt like, excuse me, as I got to know the people at Course Hero, I could trust their intentions, and I could trust the kind of partnership that we would have internally and the kind of partnerships that we would collectively try to grow and build with our educators and our students. And I had enough instinct about that to make me say, let's give it a try.
Yeah. It's fun to try new things, obviously. And I was so curious about, kind of what led to that shift. One of the things you pointed me to last week was this video of you speaking a couple years ago, GSV Summit, for those who might want to watch it later. It's excellent. It's also on the topic of purpose-driven marketing. But I love this clip that you showed from it. And it was a clip from Oprah's very first episode, and then a clip from her very last episode. And it was all about brand consistency and consistency of the show and delivering on the purpose over time, and how much similarity there was despite how long this was on the network. How have you balanced brand consistency and purpose-driven consistency with evolving the brand?
Listen, when you have somebody who's as powerful as Oprah is and her instincts are as powerful as they are, I think what we got down to is an exercise literally for every show. As a producer, she would ask each producer, what is your intention with this show? Or with a guest, what is it that you want to communicate with this show? And if she understood the intention, she could expand and elevate that intention. And, when you think about a word like intention married to a word like purpose, again, there's lots of ways that you can help somebody express their purpose if you understand their intention. So we checked our intention all the time. And, we got to a place where there was a shorthand of, what would Oprah do? And we all just sort of had that filter. And I think that's, again, part of going back to what I originally was saying, is building an organization that has character, and the character and integrity of each person is consistent with the character and integrity of leadership and the brand. And if you do that and you are consistent with the way that you are kind of pressure testing everything, everybody starts to share the same DNA in a way, if you will. So, you know, I don't think we even realized until the final show that what she had said in the first show was the same thing that she had said in the last show. And I'll just share with the audience that on the very first Oprah Winfrey show, she really talked about you are not alone. Everybody's story is important. And at the very last show, she actually said the same thing. And I don't think that that was planned. I think that is just what is at the heart of what Oprah has been about. And we all understood that in many, many ways. And this was sort of the proof of the pudding, as opposed to how do I do that? It's like, if you are doing it, it's like, if you build it, they will come. If you're doing it, it starts to, I think, expand on itself.
Yeah, a lot of, obviously Oprah is a great example because, not only was she the brand, but obviously she played a big role in it too. But even, on the business side, the Steve Jobs or the Lance Armstrongs that have, kind of been a figurehead of a purpose-driven brand, when they leave, it's interesting to see what happens in that transition, that, this whole company that's rallied around this purpose, yet that transition can kind of shake things a little bit. Have you ever been somewhere when that transition has happened, and how have you sort of navigated that?
Well, I wasn't there, but, I think MTV, Nickelodeon, Comedy Central, all of the Viacom brands, especially MTV, kind of went through that. It was a brand built on rebellion. It was a brand built on us versus them. And then Nickelodeon took a page out of the MTV book and said, okay, we're going to do a little us versus them, take it down to the next generation. And, in many ways, both for MTV and for Oprah, I felt like I was a steward of the brand. I was protecting something that was already there and very, very precious, as opposed to building them. They built on their own quite organically. And I think it's the choices that you make, yes, no, let's push forward on this, let's not do this. That is how you build a brand, when you already have that magic, sort of that magic in a bottle. When MTV, the bigger and the more corporate Viacom got, I think the more difficult it was for the really creatively driven people to continue to do what they did. There were so many other kinds of considerations, and and the world was changing and evolving in so many ways. And video music wasn't what it was from a ratings point of view. And how did you do lifestyle programming? And how did that turn into all kinds of crazy stuff? To the point where I think there was a time when MTV kind of lost its way, and it was more of a business than it was a brand. And I think then there were still some of the original MTV people there, but they were already way, 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 way up the corporate ladder and probably not as hands-on creatively. And, I think that there are cycles of that with any brand that has an extended lifespan, where you can lose your way a little bit and you have to pull back, and it takes people who have the real emotional discipline, so to speak, to insist that we got to tighten this up.
Yeah, when you think about, MTV and ESPN and Oprah and now, of course, Hero, is there a consistent theme from your perspective of, how you've been able to be successful from a marketing standpoint across all four of those?
Yeah, I will say the same thing I said a little bit ago. I really think for me, the key things are living and telling the truth. And, and there are some more personal, sort of philosophical kinds of lessons that I spoke about in the GSV conference that Oprah shares, that are a little bit more spiritual. That if you know who you are and you believe in what your instincts are telling you and what your life is showing you, if you are a good listener and you're listening not just on an intellectual level but on a heart kind of level, the guideposts are there for you to live up to who you are, as a company, as a brand, as a leader, as a contributor within a company. So, I think the more you listen, the more you hear. And the more you hear, the more well-honed the decisions are that you can make. So, I don't think that there's like a magic thing that I bring. I feel like I've been very lucky to be in environments where there is a natural relationship between a consumer and the brand, and I've been able to listen and hold myself and our teams up to a standard of respect for our viewers, for our consumers, to say they come first. We have to listen to them, and despite the pressures, if there are pressures for revenue or pressures for growth, what the commitment is to the consumer and making sure that you are respectful, relentlessly consistent and respectful of that consumer. I think that is the key to any brand, but especially a brand where you want people to take action and you want people to be connected to your point of view and your purpose in a deeper kind of way.
Yeah, I think, being connected to your consumers is more important than ever. It's always been important, of course, but like, especially right now, it feels more important than ever. And I'm just curious, are there new ways that you are listening to your consumers during this time period? I mean, you mentioned getting the feedback and kind of understanding what they really matter to them now, but are there different signals that you're looking for?
We've done everything from, anthropological listening to, millions and millions of social posts to try and understand the category and understand our brand and understand where students are, to focus groups, to, quant surveys, to segmentation surveys, and really just getting out there and meeting with educators. For instance, we just did an educator summit 2 weeks ago with about 7,000 people registered, and we did, I think, 90 sessions in 3 days, and we really had a chance to get to know people. And we had dance parties and feedback sessions, cocktails every night. So even though it was virtual, we really had an opportunity to listen to people. And I think that when you take a high touch approach with listening and talking and engaging, you learn things you don't necessarily expect that you're going to learn. We even did a survey with students for the purposes of sharing with educators. What is life like for you in this COVID moment? What is it what's working for you? What's not working for you? What do you want an educator or a teacher to know? What do you want them to do differently? And so we did this with 100 students. Our research team presented that to educators, and there are educators who came up to us after the session and said, I'm going to change my teaching plan for the fall based on what I learned. And again, our intention was positive. Our intention was generous, so to speak, that we listen, if you guys want this survey and you want to do it in your own campus, in your own community, here's all the work that we did. Take it and use it learn it. It may be different in your community than it was across our student base. So, again, the intention was not to merchandise anything. It was to learn and to share in the most generous way that we could. And I think that's what we want to continue to do. And I think, when you approach anything that way, whether it's a relationship, whether it's, a business thing or a purpose-driven, company sort of thing, if you, Michelle Obama says, you take the high road, it's always the better way to go. If you are generous with what you're putting out there, I think people who are engaged in your brand they tend to be generous coming back to you. People feel that, people recognize that.
Yeah, for sure. I love the virtual nature of taking the feedback and still trying to make it personal and have that connection. 2020 has been a challenging year for many people, many brands, many businesses. And what's been so interesting to me, having started my career in journalism and PR a million years ago now, is that this is like finally the year where you can't be agnostic and you can't say no comment. And it's been super interesting to see companies from all walks of lives, come out and make a statement around Black Lives Matter, whether it was Ben and Jerry's or Wrangler jeans and everyone in between. What advice do you have for purpose-driven brands in this era? They're navigating a lot of things, and some companies historically, even if they have a purpose, maybe wouldn't comment or take a stance, and that is not the 2020 way. I'm curious your thoughts on how to be fast and how to be true to yourself. And
right. Well, I think it's possible to take a stand without being overly provocative, so to speak. We took a stand by saying we want to help students with emergency aid. We want to help students with content. We want to help students with, We want to help educators. You know, when everything happened with George Floyd, we took a stand as well and said, okay, we're going to go to our college partners. We had already done a partnership with UNCF, and we called our friends there and said, we'd like to make another donation. Can we come up with something that we can do together specifically to address some of these kinds of issues? And we also reached out and made a partnership with an organization called CodePath, which they specifically reach out to underrepresented schools and underrepresented students at underrepresented schools. They've built their own curriculum for computer skills, programming, etc. Anybody, any underrepresented student on a campus can take those courses for free. They train both teachers and students on those campuses to teach those courses, and then they have follow-up internships, mentorships, career fairs, etc. We made a commitment to CodePath. We're building a partnership with CodePath. We're not making any major political statement except to say we are listening. We are equally concerned about everything that's happening, and we want to not just say Black Lives Matter, we want to do something about it. And, you know, I would say, if I was going to try to be pithy about it, what you do is more important than what you say.
I love going back to that point. I think that's so powerful, and it's so true. We've got some good questions coming in, actually, so I'm going to start switching gears and answering questions from the chat.
Okay.
One of those questions is actually a follow-up to that, really being it and doing it rather than saying it. So perfect segue. How do you guide the conversation with successful brands that have only had a top-down, one-way relationship with customers for most of their existence, to try and be a purpose-driven and try and have that new mindset of being in conversation with customers?
Wow, you know, I mean, that sounds like it's, you know, one of the kinds of things that you have to change as a culture of a company. You know, if a company is mandating things from the top down, I would just wonder if what is it that the leadership is listening to in order to mandate that from the top down? You know, I guess depending on where you are in the organization and depending on, you know, your role, to encourage people or question, you know, what are we getting in from the consumer? What are we understanding? And are we understanding fully what our consumers are telling us? And are we listening to what our consumers are telling us versus what we're telling ourselves? Not always easy. If you're not at the top of the company and you're trying to question the people at the top of the company, that's not always easy. But I think that's, you know, through the relationships that you have within a company to try and speak to the right people, find a coalition of people who want to listen and reflect that circular kind of communication. Find some allies.
That's right. Allies and advocates.
Right.
Another question from the chat is, what trends in consumer behavior are particularly interesting to you right now, and are changing media consumptions impacting your marketing?
Yes. Boy, it's hard to keep up with all the changing media habits, and, you know, particularly for the college student audience. All of our marketing has been very, very, very targeted, very SEO driven, very SEM driven, and we haven't really done a tremendous amount of outbound, broader kind of marketing. So I feel like we're kind of growing from the ground up. We're learning by what we're seeing as SEO, what we're seeing with SEM. We're experimenting with influencer campaigns. We're experimenting with targeting and retargeting. We're experimenting with new platforms. We're building out more ongoing kinds of email programs. And my sense, at least in our business, is that the more direct ways you can find to communicate and to engage with consumers, the better off you're going to be. You know, until you reach such a level of scale that you know what you can say. And here's one other thing that I think, you know, even more than kind of marketing from the top down to the last question, if you have a platform, knowing how to use that platform to best serve your audience, viewer, consumer, your platform is the best possible destination you can create. So, if it's your digital, digital website for retail stores or, for consumer packaged goods, everything you do is a marketing tool. And I think, people have more powerful platforms necessarily than they think. And you think you need to use all kinds of external tools, and you don't sort of see the value and the importance of the most core tools that you have.
Got a couple questions here that are a little bit more about your personal story and your background. And this is actually a really great one. I love this one. Is how has your leadership style changed over the past few months or even in recent years? And have you been able to develop more personal relationships with customers or colleagues as a result?
Boy, I would say I've been fortunate to work in companies where, and I have to say, it sort of ties into this. I have always been able to be myself. I have never really felt like there was a disconnect between who I am and the place in which I work. So, my leadership style has grown by virtue of, hopefully growing and maturing as I've gone through my career and improving my listening skills. And I think I listen more now than I did probably when I was, in my 20s. And there's another sort of aphorism that I've heard for many years. It's not even necessarily about what you do; it's about who you are. And I think that with the more experience you have, and the less you feel you have to prove, the more you actually are able to prove by being something that people respond to, not necessarily saying, "I did this, I did this, I did this." Oprah tells a story about Maya Angelou when she opened up her school in South Africa, and she said, "This is what my legacy is going to be." And Dr. Angelou said to her, "You don't know what your legacy is. You don't know how many people you've impacted, where you've impacted them, how you've impacted them. You have no idea what legacy really is." And I think to the degree that I've kind of internalized that as a leadership style, you never know who you're helping, who you're hurting potentially. If you start to think a little bit less about what you do and a little bit more about who you are and how you are helping other people, and listening for those kinds of cues and listening for the same kind of cues with your consumer, I think that is, for me, that has been what I hope to evolve to as a leader.
Yeah, I love that. And the spot on like being able to listen too, with age. I would agree. It helps. But, my mentor used to say to me since I was really young that 2 ears, one mouth, and for a reason, and try and listen twice as much as you speak. And it's easier said than done at times. Okay, very last one. I know we've just got a couple minutes left. Someone has asked around purpose-driven marketing, knowing your purpose as an individual and how that interplay can be interesting. How did you get into marketing, and did your personal purpose play a role in that?
I will have to say, I don't necessarily know that I had a personal purpose that I had identified. Excuse me, I was a film major and I loved movies. And the very first job that I had before, in MTV as a company was like being a marketing coordinator for the movie channel. And I was just willing to do anything I could do to be involved in movies. And in fact, when MTV came along, which was very soon after I joined the company, they said, "Oh, we're going to combine music and television, and we think it's going to be great." And I was like, "That's never going to work." Therefore, you never know. But I think I did always listen to my instinct. There's a story that I tell at the GSV conference about Oprah when she was 4 years old, and her grandmother was putting clothes on the laundry line, and she was saying, "Oprah Gail, you better pay attention. You better learn how to do this because someday you're going to work with some nice white people." And at 4 years old, she said, "Nope, no, Grandma, I'm not going to be doing that." And she knew something. Her purpose was a higher calling, and I think I just sort of always knew I wanted to do something big. I wanted to do something that had a lot of impact, and I was lucky to be able to find places where my instinct and what was happening matched. So there's a degree to which I think it's, again, just paying attention to what lights you up and following your instinct.
That's great. I see we've
Good.
got Kayla back.
I got
Hi guys, great discussion. I actually really love the language all throughout this conversation, and I wrote a bunch of them down. It was, honesty, authenticity, integrity, being generous, unselfish, being true to your values. Check your intentions. I thought was a great one as well too, and the importance of listening. So I think Harriet, you sort of started off the session today with the point about you can't just say it, you have to be it. And I think that what you do is more important than what you say. Like, lots of great language and advice all throughout. And I think all great advice for purpose driven brands, but really it's great advice for any brand. They're kind of the foundation of being a successful brand and being authentic. So thank you so much for sharing all of your
Sure.
insights, and it was a really powerful and great discussion. So thank you.
excellent. Good. My pleasure. We'll see you.
Thanks, Dalton. Great. So we are going to our next session. Just a quick reminder to the audience as well too, just to use the hashtag BI_Livecast when you're tweeting and sharing out today's events. Next up, our next session, we will now hear from Alan McGee. Alan is the Vice President of Digital Marketing and Technology at Church's Chicken. In his role at Church's, McGee is tasked with overseeing Church's entire digital evolution as the brand transitions from a more traditional marketing-only brand. This session will be moderated by Chris Niemczyk, the VP of National Sales East for Ground Truth. So welcome to Alan and Chris. I can see you're both there.
Yes, thank you so much.
Over to you guys.
Thank you. Good afternoon. Thank you so much. What a great session it's been so far. And Al and I are going to hopefully continue that and give you guys some good insight. So real quick, I'm Chris Niemczyk. I handle East Sales for Ground Truth. We are a advertising and marketing platform focused on location. So driving measurable outcomes for clients, whether it's store visits or sales, but really being able to show you true outcomes. You've built on really accurate data on a platform there as well. Alan, if you want to give any additional information about your background and your job, we connected today, and we wear many, many hats in the organization to handle a lot of the marketing pieces. So if you want to give some more background on that before we kick it off, that'd be fantastic.
Yeah, thanks, Chris. Alan McGee, I've been with Church's Chicken for almost 2 years now and oversee all things digital marketing and technology. So that covers whether it's social, PR, MarTech, loyalty, creative, working with our online ordering and delivery partners. So I like to say all things that a consumer engages with on a screen that are not in an actual restaurant falls to myself and my team. So that's a little bit about my world and Church's, everything on a screen.
It's awesome. My company loves screens as well. So you handle so many parts of the marketing umbrella for Church's. How do you build the idea of purpose into your roadmap and your strategy, really with the idea of helping you to better connect with key audiences and really create more deeper, meaningful moments for them? How do you guys think about that as you build your strategy or as you evolve your strategy moving forward, considering everything that's gone on this year?
Yeah, purpose is something that is, I'd say, at the core of Church's Chicken. We're a 68-year-old brand. We've been in communities, whether it's from Florida to Texas to California, for decades. And so being part of these communities, we're engaged with, a lot of the schools, a lot of the people, a lot of the organizations. And so the idea of supporting those communities has always been at the center with Church's Chicken. And so in my role, especially really on the PR and social side, is to say, how do we find those opportunities to engage with our communities, to give back, and to do it in fun and different ways? We also have a great partnership with No Kid Hungry, which I know you guys are partnered with also. So do a ton with that, which supports so many people in those communities around our restaurants. And so we try to put this lens on it around different activities and what's going to be the impact to the community. Does this matter to the people that are, that are our fans, that are our guests? And so we're using that lens on a lot of different things, that we do.
You were mentioning to me before about you guys did a drive-through graduation earlier this year in the middle of COVID. Explain what that was, how it worked, Is there plans to do more things like that in the future? Because it sounds really, really cool. I know there was a big PR and social vision on that. So we'd love to hear more about what that was and how it came about.
Yeah, when COVID hit, one of the big stories for the first couple months was around all these high schoolers that were not going to be able to walk across the stage, that they were having this abnormal senior year. They've got to finish out school at home, and so we were hearing it from people internally. We were hearing it from fans, and one of our agency partners, T3, came up with this great idea and said, we should do a drive-through graduation. And let's do it in San Antonio, home of the brand, where the first Church's Chicken was in 1952, and worked with our local franchisee group, the Ampler Group, who does a ton of great community work, identified, I'd say, underserved school district right near one of our restaurants, and worked with the principal, found 3 students that were all top of the class, really first to go to college in their families, and wanted to give them this kind of special shout out, special occasion. So totally had a surprise for them. Worked with their parents, and they showed up thinking they were doing this behind the scenes COVID graduation senior video thing. They pull up to the drive-through, and they've got merchandising with their face on. Great job, Leticia, going here for college. These are what you accomplished in high school, valedictorian. And then the principal was on the speaker and congratulating them. We gave them a customized meal. They come around, they see more merchandising with their actual picture on it on the restaurant. The principal's in the drive-through, hands them their cap and gown, their diploma, and then ourselves and our franchise group put together a scholarship for them for their first year to further their education. So to help them in their first year as they go to college. And then had friends and family outside cheering, balloons, banners, all social distancing, of course. And just something special for these kids to make them feel special because they'd worked so hard, beat so many odds. And then how can we make them feel special because this idea of graduation was taken away from them? And so being able to give back to that community, we did some special deals with the whole school district, but those type of things, yeah, they're great from a social media content perspective, but it's really more around that activation and making the brand felt in the community where it's there every single day.
That's lovely. And I'm sure you fed them a lot of chicken during that whole time as well, hopefully. So how do you build on that? What's next? Like, even next year, if we're out of this COVID, let's pray, and people are getting back to graduations, like how can you do something similar like that, or continue to build and focus on these community events to create those lifelong fans, really, and hopefully those communities where that will continue to support your brand moving forward? What's next for that vision for you guys?
Yeah, we're trying to figure that out every day, because every time you do one thing, you want to try to figure out how to do it, bigger and better than the next time. And so definitely thinking about activations, which we're doing a lot of, whether it's with, frontline workers and food drops, or again, working with No Kid Hungry, trying to raise money, through roundups and through in-restaurant activation. So doing all of that, which is supporting in the near term, but in the future, yeah, definitely looking for what are some bigger, broader programs that we can connect with our fans and give back to them. So we did one the other week, just about 2 weeks ago, which was a campfire giveaway. We had a new product that we've been running, our Campfire Smokehouse Chicken, and wanted to give back to our fans, because our fans have been I say really engaged and engaging with us much more on social since COVID started. And so did a whole scavenger hunt with a 360 video on Facebook and gave away every part of this campsite, whether it's the movie projector, it was a cooler, it was delivery codes, it was a tent, cornhole. And so different ways to give back to those fans, no matter, like I said, wherever they were living, from the brand, and trying to give them something for their backyard to have fun with. And so trying to find those opportunities in time where, as behavior, as different occasions come up, what can we do to, again, have fun, engage with our fans? And I'd say social has become much more in the forefront as we think about purpose-driven marketing and how we do this engagement.
Yeah, both those ideas are so cool. The scavenger hunt's really unique and it can be done safely while still connecting with your fans, promoting the LTO, and giving some really cool prizes away. When you come up with that idea, is that your team internally at churches working with T3 or other agencies, or do you work on ideas together and then formalize them to finalize them? How do you build those ideas?
Yeah, it's a combo. So we've got a great suite of partners. We've got 3 to 4 agency partners that are constantly coming up with ideas for us. And then we're coming up with ideas internally. We're sharing back and forth and saying, what can we do? How do we do it? And then with COVID, it's really the question is, how do we do this safely, right? How can we execute on this idea and still do it when you're not having to travel, or you've got to be socially distant and taking all these precautions in place. So we're always trying to come up with something different, new ideas, and then, okay, how do we take this idea that could be really fun, and how do we then connect it at a deeper level, whether it's, like you're saying, with the communities, with our restaurants, with some sort of our fan base on something that's going on in their lives. So anybody can do a stunt that's a scented candle or or something like that. But how can you take a fun idea and then bring it down a layer deeper so that it's a little stronger of an engagement?
I know it's not the whole goal, right, in terms of measuring ROI for things like that, but is there a way to measure ROI and look at the success beyond just the immediate impact of who you reach, the number of people that were exposed to it? Or how do you think about that from a success standpoint?
Yeah, I think, there's certain things that you do as a marketer that are very tangible ROIs. And a lot of what I'm looking at on a daily basis is like, what's the ROI? What's the conversion rate? What's the actual revenue from this? But then there's other things that have that long-term effect. And when you think about purpose-driven marketing, it's about engaging with that guest on a more emotional level. And food's in a really interesting spot because food is both emotional but also very functional. Like we all got to eat, but and some people definitely are much more emotional about their food. But for a brand like us, and we're competing against 15, 20 other fast food restaurants that maybe are in a town or a city, it's a little more of, where do I want to go, here or there? And so we have to build a little more of that emotional connection as a brand. And so it's more about saying, how can we make those inroads and thinking about the brand a little differently versus a hard number. And yes, we're measuring engagement and we're seeing all of those kind of different metrics there. But we do ultimately think it does help grow affinity, and it makes those Churches fans want to defend us, want to engage with us, want to tell their friends about us. And you can't measure that, and that's okay. You're not able to measure everything.
Right. And long-term fans, like building that really core audience for you is so key, especially in such a competitive industry, as you said, and really be able to have those people that you can rely on them always to have your back, to support you, and to create actual value for you guys outside of what you're putting your monetary efforts in. So that's awesome. You mentioned before, we talked about doing everything safely, right? Indoor dining, not the safest thing. Some states are a little more relaxed on that now than others in terms of just where they need to be. So obviously, as a QSR, you want to drive foot traffic into your store. Mid-March comes, not really an option. How did you guys start to shift your marketing plan, start to think about ways, okay, like we need to double down on online ordering, we need to double down on drive-through success and speeding up the time it takes to get through there. Like, how did you guys shift to make your business work when a good amount of your sales that happen in store were no longer able to be done so safely?
Yeah, that's the question of the hour, right? So really, first it started with the ops side, making sure that our restaurants were safe, cleaning, different safety measures in place for the crew, and making sure that we had transparency with our guests that our restaurants were safe to go to. And then being able to talk about that, our health and safety messaging, whether it's about gloves, masks, contactless. And so that was one leg of shifting that, which is, very different for the restaurant industry. Historically, it's all about product and crave. And, we all had to shift our message to the mindset of the guests. It's around like, is this safe? And then what are the safe ways to access us? Come through the drive-through, order delivery, order ahead and pick up. And so we really shifted our message there and talking about the modes, which we call Churches to Go. And luckily for us as a brand, we have a majority of our restaurants have drive-throughs, so we were good there. And almost all of our restaurants had upwards of 2, 3, 4 delivery partners already. So we weren't having to add anybody. So when that came through, we were able to be very nimble with our messaging. Within the first week, when we said, okay, this thing's real, let's shift our messaging. Let's talk about health and safety. Let's talk about Churches to Go. And we just beat that drum for probably about 60 days, to be honest, and talked about core products and how you can get value, put together some family value meals. So shifting of occasions from those people aren't, our guests aren't driving to work and coming getting a $5 combo, but they are coming at night and getting, a big box of chicken and 3 sides and a gallon of tea that their family may be eating for 2 or 3 days. So evolving that message. But then as we've gotten in the past 2 months, we've shifted to a little more going that crave, talking about our smokehouse chicken. And it came at the right time because after 2-3 months of eating at home and you're eating the same thing, we started hearing people and social talk about, fatigue, and they were all about, these cravings they were having. And so the doors have kind of come open and we launched our smokehouse chicken. It was the right time. People saying, I've been waiting for something new. I'm craving something different. I'm tired of the same thing I've been eating. So I think we planned it out pretty well to get to the point where we're at today.
That's fantastic. I can eat some of that chicken right now. I'm very, very hungry myself. So you can actually create purpose out of changing your message to say, hey, we're thinking about your family, we're thinking about doing safely, but we're still here for you. So you can, again, build that purpose deeper for them, get that meaningful connection. When somebody will say, well, oh man, I had an amazing meal at church with my family, it fed us for many, many days. I can respect that training and understand their value there. And we'll continue to add to that lifelong fan value, right? Which you want to continue to build and to grow upon. I was looking at some of the metrics earlier today. I think it was like over 80% increase in digital sales post when COVID first hit. And you guys had the platforms and the ability to handle that increase. How do you plan on continuing to capitalize on that and maybe even refine your mobile ordering apps or your other digital tools to order and working with other delivery partners, the Seamlesses of the world? Like, how do you continue to work on that and improve that to continue to have such a nice stream of revenue from that ordering system?
Yeah, that's a really interesting area. And we talk a lot about that as consumer behavior has really, really shifted, right? It's people are going digital first, not only for research, but to place that order. And this idea of convenience for guests, of being able to get their food when, how, where they want it, it's not going to go away. Suddenly, when post-COVID and we're back to some what we're called like normalcy, right? People still aren't going to want to wait 15 minutes for their food. And so people are still going to want convenience. And, we're taking advantage of that. We relaunched our mobile app that has online ordering in it just about 6 weeks ago. We're building out, I'd say, stronger CRM and loyalty strategy. So once you get people into that ordering funnel and we know they've tried us, how do we then get you to order 2 or 3 more times? And how do we make that more of a habit? Because we know that that guest is more satisfied when they're ordering ahead, they show up, their food's ready, straight transaction, and then they're on their way. But also things like delivery and working with all our delivery partners, finding unique ways to do promotions. How can we, again, continue to drive awareness of trial with our guests that typically come in and wait in line to get their food. So trying to, again, put convenience out in front in all of those ways. And it takes time to get that message across to our guests. So that's definitely something that we're focused on. I'd say in the past, the digital ordering was probably a little more of on the outside, and now it's come much more into the core of our thinking and when we think about campaigns and marketing.
Yeah, I mean, specifically speaking from a ground truth standpoint, like we're a location-based company driving visits, right? That was our main outcome that we work towards. Obviously, sales come out of that and some other measurable outcomes. But COVID hits, no one's going in store. And we had all these different products on our roadmap that we wanted to get to in terms of adding desktop and CTV built on our accurate audiences, cost per order, cost per download. Early April, engineering team, product roadmap, like we're fast tracking all that stuff to help give our clients, like churches and other QSR clients out there, more opportunities to still capitalize on the power of location, but to do it in a more viable way, considering what was going on. So it's been quite a 6 months for my company, really all companies and then in the world, specifically the advertising space. So hopefully we'll continue to move forward and hopefully we'll change for the better as an industry and an organization and figure out ways that we can reduce costs, reduce travel time, and be a lot more efficient working remotely when needed. So Alan, so what do you think the future of the QSR landscape will look like 6 months, 18 months, 3 years? Like, what are some changes that are going to stay? What are some new ones that we're going to continue to see come through after all this? How do you think the QSR landscape is going to continue to shake out after COVID finally dies down and we have some real permanent change in place for the future of our country?
Yeah, I think one that's already starting to come to fruition, and you're seeing it from other brands. We've been talking about it at churches. I've talked about it at past brands I was at. Is what's the evolution of the physical restaurant? And you saw brands going to more to-go stations. So it's really easy that grab and go. But also, what is the role of the dining room? And are people going to be dining less? How can we make dining rooms smaller? Because more people want these to-go occasions.
Mhm.
And so you're seeing restaurants, fast casuals coming out with drive-throughs now, right? You're hearing Chipotle and Shake Shack talking about that. But also, if there was 60 seats in a restaurant, maybe it's now 30 because you don't need those 30, but you need room for this to-go station. So I think that's one key area. The other, I'd say, is occasions. And you're seeing a lot of brands shift and doing take-home meals at home, or brands that were always individual single-serve brands now coming out with family meals. And churches, we've always had a mix of family and I'd say single-serve occasions. So we're able to toggle back and forth, but there's a lot of brands out there that are now starting to open up that new occasion, or also that delivery occasion. Does that delivery menu look a little bit different? And so those type of things I think will be around, and they were probably what COVID's done is help accelerate those probably by 12 to 36 months faster than before if we would have as an industry just kind of ticked along and slowly gotten there.
Yeah, it's a really great point. I think even thinking about companies like our own, like, do we need office space as much as we have now to get our job done? Like, can you save a lot of money by not having as large dining rooms or as many dining rooms, but still being able to offer the same product the way that people want to buy it at that moment? So it's going to be interesting to see how commercial real estate lands out after the next few years and just the changes that will come after this. Hopefully, most for the better. I've got some questions here we can get started
Sure.
with. There's a good amount on here. I know we're a few minutes early before we wanted to start that, but there's some really good ones. Let's start with this one directly to you, Adam. So what brands do you look up to? What leaders in marketing do you admire? And we can frame that from your personal experience,
Wow.
and also from a purpose lens.
Wow, good question. What brands do I look up to, and who do I admire? A brands I think I look up to more today. A lot of these up and coming brands that have purpose built into the core of the company. So, for instance, like a Bombas, and other people will say Tom's, but those brands that have purpose built from day one. And I really look up to them because they're doing something really good, and for not only the business side of stuff, right? Because people want to have that affinity with a business that does give back, but also it's just intuitive. And I think you're going to bring more people in to work at that brand that have that mindset that really want to do good for for society. And so, like I said, I love a lot of the work that Bombas is doing. I think Subaru does a ton of great work when it comes to purpose-driven marketing. There's a ton, but all these new, I'd say, D2C brands, really appreciate the thought as they're starting to build these brands from the ground up.
Is there any brand in the QSR space that you've seen do a really good job at purpose marketing, or maybe one specific initiative or a program that they've released for the last year or so?
Not one brand of something that they've built from the ground up, I'd say. But I think, we talked about earlier, No Kid Hungry, who we're a partner with. You guys are a lot of restaurant brands. They're doing just, I would say, some incredible work. Especially, we've got so many underserved schools where kids need breakfast and lunch, and especially even going through the summer when kids were virtual. And so I think organizations like that I really do look up towards, because they are working towards the greater good, and they have been able to bring in so many good partners, from whether it's the marketing technology side of stuff, the brand side, all of these different areas that are all supporting in the food industry. And so, huge fan of them, was even before my church's days.
Awesome. All right, so another question for you. Referring to purpose marketing, what, in your opinion, are the best channels for brands to communicate with consumers? And how best can they resonate with people in an authentic, genuine way?
So I truly believe that we have made the shift out of PR and advertising to social first when it comes to purpose-driven marketing and communication, and also just communication in general. Historically, it was more around, hey, we have to get credit for what we're doing. So we're going to make an ad for this and we're going to run it on TV. And now it's more real time and social. You're able to have that engagement with your fans. It's more of a two-way conversation. But also you're able to spend more money on the actual impact than on the actual execution. And so I feel like social is the right channel because it does allow you to have that two-way conversation.
Do you work with influencers at all? Do you use that as a tool to help open up some new revenue streams for you guys?
We have not yet at churches. Used to run influencers in past lives at other brands. So I'm a big fan of influencers, and that's a whole, I mean, we could do a whole day on that space as it evolves. But I think influencers are another great way to connect in that kind of, if you took the brand in a bubble and you put another one over here, of a way to connect on that emotional level and tie that affinity. They've got some real power today.
That's great. All right, some more questions. All right, so as leaders, both you and I'm a sales leader, you're a marketing leader. We're always working to develop our skills, both our own, but also our teams. So what skills would you like to see your marketing team develop this year?
Oh, wow. That's a lot of this year, and it's been interesting during COVID, I will say. But it's about crafting a story and presentation. And I will say, we spend time every month focusing on PDPs, personal development plans, and probably the most under focused soft skill that I see most young people coming up in marketers is presentations. And I spent about 6 years in Toastmasters, going to Toastmasters every week, learning how to give speeches, get comfortable in front of an audience, talk off the cuff, all of that kind of stuff. And it's a skill that you just have to practice, and you just have to do it over and over again. It's not something you can do once. And so some of the folks on our team have been focusing on that. We're doing it more virtually. We get feedback, and the whole virtual presentation piece is a different beast, but at the same time, you can still focus on that storytelling. And that's probably the number one thing that I'd say most up and coming marketers, spend your time and focus there.
Storytelling. That's all my job really is. And it's so important to be able to constantly work on presentation skills. Some of my best sellers on my team have taken significant amount of courses in public speaking and focused on that. And you can really see a difference with their skills, and making sure that me as a leader can give them actually honest feedback and say, well, hey, you maybe use this word too much, or you weren't listening to their questions and you went your own path. So it's such an important skill for marketing, for sales, for really our entire industry to be able to communicate effectively and to really get your point across. Okay. Another question here. We touched on this a little briefly before, Alan, and you and I talked about this morning, but are you developing any long-term partnerships with food delivery companies? I'm sure you've already worked with many of them, but are you working with any new ones now and figure out ways to partner in terms of making the revenue work for both of you?
Yeah, these are just consistent conversations. We're partnered with, I think, 8 different food delivery companies. And then we have an online ordering partnership with Olo for order ahead and pickup. And so we're constantly looking at each of those individually as they have new products that they're launching. Should we be trialing those? How do we build integration inside of our marketing technology stack so it all works together and are sharing data? But it's, I'll give these delivery partnerships a lot of credit because they're constantly coming out with new products, new enhancements, and they were really quick to pivot when COVID hit. And as behaviors change, they're really the front line because as a brand, since we're really buying into that technology, we need them to help weigh on a number of these, changes in consumer behavior.
It's awesome. It's awesome. Yeah, I never thought I would ever use as many of the platforms as I have post-COVID. I like to cook a lot of my own food, but I find myself getting that fatigue of eating the same similar things over and over again. So once my wife and I were comfortable, we started testing some of the new apps and treating ourselves to some fun meals. So good to hear that you guys are still thinking about that and want to grow that as habits change. Quick question just off the top of my head real quick that came up. As you obviously have a CMO, you have a CEO, you have a whole executive team that you work with. Did they put pressure on you to help think more from a purpose-driven marketing lens as you put your roadmap and vision together moving forward?
Yeah, I think from the top level for sure. Our CEO is very involved with No Kid Hungry, and our CMO also. And so, a lot of conversations with our CMO, Brian, around different social activations or different community activations from a PR side, working with our field team. So it's definitely, like I said, it's always top of mind because our franchisees who are at the ground level, I mean, they're really engaging with those communities around them. And so sometimes it's taking that work that they're doing from the ground up and that we're coming from the top down, and how do we meet in that middle? And I think that's a lot of the push from our leadership is how do we bridge that so it's all feels like it's all working together.
Yeah, that's a great point. And at Ground Truth specifically, we have a whole initiative called Location for Good, where we work with No Kid Hungry. We just ran an awesome campaign with them previously, and then done some work where we are focused on driving visits to stores like your own that are supporting the dine-in option. We've also worked with Headcount to help drive voter registration, American Red Cross for blood donations. We actually work with the Amber Alerts as well. So because of our location technology, we're able to serve timely ads into a very defined area where a child has recently gone missing. So my executive team and the mid leadership team are focused on working with clients there as well to help use our location and our platform to do something good to help create more purpose out of our brand and our vision moving forward. So it's glad to hear that a lot of executives nowadays, especially considering the world we're living in and thinking about ways to help create more purpose and more value and a stickier, better brand. Okay, we've got 5 minutes left. All right, a few more questions on here. I guess this could be for both of us, kind of. So let's start with you, Alan. How has your leadership style changed over the past several months? Have you been able to develop more personal relationships with your colleagues?
Oh wow, I would say it's evolved. I'm very much a person that likes to walk around the office, pop in, move around and just have quick conversations. So I think that's definitely evolved. And as we get to this, everyone you talk to says, I go my 30 minute, my 60 minutes, I run to the bathroom, I get my water, I'm back on a call. And so, found working with my team of using chat functionality or just quick check-ins on little things, but knowing that everyone's kind of in this, this meeting bouncing around, I've had to change a little bit of how I engage with the team to give them time also so that we're not constantly on calls talking through stuff, but giving people time to actually work. And I think that's the evolution. I think personal relations, why it has, they have grown because we're definitely all, we're chatting more, we're on calls. There's a lot, everyone feels they've got to over index a little bit more the first 5 minutes of every call and kind of share personal experiences. And I think that being on these constant Zoom calls opens up people to share more about their home life, their personal experiences. Whereas before you're in the office and you're kind of thinking about like what is going on in that box of the office.
I couldn't agree more. As a sales leader and a salesperson, my job is to be out engaging with clients, building partnerships, meeting new people, storytelling, building our brand. And then, having a sales team all around me to quickly share ideas and best practices and, troubleshoot some issues or ways to make our clients have a better, successful campaign. So not having that constant engagement has been a challenge for me and a lot of my team members as well. I was usually on the road at least once every other week, down to Atlanta, up to Boston, all over, talking to clients. So adjusting to being in my apartment with my wife working right next to me and sharing the Wi-Fi has definitely been a challenge. But now, like 6 months into it, I've got a really good groove, and I never thought that I'd be able to work from home successfully. If you asked me pre-COVID, I'd be like, no, that's not for me. But now I have a really good groove. I can structure my day well. I can block off my calendar where I need to focus on my to-do list or take my dog for a walk and really make sure that the team knows that you need those little bit of breaks. I've also found a lot of my team, myself, and team members in my team as well will work a lot longer than they need to. I'll see people online at 9, 10, sending Slack, sending emails. And it's like, okay, it's okay to shut down at moments and to take that time to yourself and relax and ready for the next day. So also too, I do feel that I've also grown a little bit deeper with some of my colleagues that, I'd say hi to in the kitchen or in the hallway, but now we're face to face a little bit more on a meeting is getting the job done. So I have been able to grow relationships there as well. So it'll be interesting to see once we all come out of this, what is our industry like? I'm really interested to see how that shifts. And again, like I said, hopefully for the better.
Yep.
But I'm sure you guys are thinking about that as well and working with your agency partners and actual media partners and how to do business more efficiently and better, but still drive purpose and change there. So any last comments for you, Alan, before we move on?
No, I'd say, thanks. Good questions. Thanks for the time. Great questions from everybody out there. And yeah, I really enjoyed the session.
Same here. Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Hey guys, thanks Alan, thanks Chris. Super interesting actually to hear about, purpose-driven brands in the context of food and fast food. And, I think that sort of you don't naturally go there necessarily when you think of that category, but fascinating to sort of see how that impacts your role. And I will say I was surprised, over 80% increase in digital sales, Alan. I mean, were you prepared in your digital channels? I think that says a lot about sort of where you were at pre-COVID, right? In the way that you were set up. So
yeah, I'd say we were lucky where COVID hits, if that's a positive statement in any. But we'd been building for about 18 months, kind of revamping. I like to say we're rebuilding our digital house from web to listings to CRM to digital ordering and how it all worked together. And it was a 3-year roadmap, and we were midway through year 2 when it hit. And so if it would have happened 6-8 months before that, I think we would have been scrambling on a number of things. So
right.
I feel really lucky where we're at in our roadmap.
Yeah, no, that's great. I mean, I'm sure you can't imagine if it was a year earlier and not being prepared. I mean, not that anyone is prepared necessarily for COVID. But thanks, guys. Thanks so much for the session. And Chris, thanks so much for moderating. Great to have you on, Alan. It was a great chat.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Okay, so on to our last session of the day. I don't want to say we're leaving the best till last, but we are joined by a fantastic next panelist called Stephen Root. Stephen is the VP of Brand and Marketing Strategy and Planning at Intuit, overseeing all aspects of marketing and the Intuit brand with a direct reporting line into the CMO. Stephen joined Intuit in September 2009 after 14 years at Visa. And at Visa, held several senior marketing positions across brand management, strategic planning, and partnership digital product marketing and research and insights. Goes on, Stephen. You went round the organization by the sounds of it. And I will like to note that, I did like the product marketing role, secondment at ANZ Bank. I'm familiar with it, obviously, due to my accent. So sort of see that brand. So welcome, Stephen. The session today, I am pleased to introduce my fellow WPP colleague, Susan McTigger. She is the Executive Partner of Brand Marketing and Strategy at Ogilvy Consulting. Stephen, you're in great hands with Susan today. So welcome, Stephen. Welcome, Susan. Thanks so much for joining us. And over to you for our last session.
Thank you for the invite. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Kyla. And I've been really so looking forward to this conversation. Purpose, as Kyla knows, is one of my favorite topics, as I know it is for Stephen as well. So, let's just start with, at a very high level. I know purpose is not something new at Intuit, and it does appear that it was very important even pre-COVID, with your powering prosperity around the world. Just to get us started, I would love to have you share your views on purpose in general, and then specifically how it informed, the company pre-COVID. And of course, we'll get to post-COVID.
Absolutely. And everyone can hear me, correct?
Yes, I think I can certainly hear you. So hopefully that goes for everybody. Oh dear, now we can't hear you.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, cool.
Perfect.
First off, Kyla, thank you very much for the introduction. Appreciate it. Susan, thank you for the question. And first off, actually, I just want to say, hopefully people who are in these fires right now are safe. It's very foggy where I am, not foggy, it's very cloudy where I am right now, and it's hard to breathe a little bit. So hopefully everyone's staying safe and hopefully taking care. So I just want to start there. Purpose it's interesting. I'm not a liar, so I will start off with purpose drove me to Intuit. When I went through, and for as a reminder for people who don't know Intuit too well, we're the proud makers of QuickBooks, TurboTax, and Mint. So we're very involved in finances, very involved in technology. But we've been a purpose-driven company since 1983 when Scott Cook founded the company. He sat at his dining table with his wife, looked at a checkbook and said, there's got to be a better way. And that's how it started. But purpose really is what drove me to it. When I got to look at the company, when I saw its mission, and when I saw its mission, just work its way through the system in everyone that I talked to, it was fantastic. And as a brand marketer, our whole job as brand marketers is to drive connections, deep connections with people, and to have those people want to take an action that, of course, especially if you're in the corporate world, buy something. But it's much easier to do that when you feel good about what the company stands for, not just the products that it makes. So we've been making great products for 40 years, but we've also been doing that with the eye of solving customer problems. So it gives me so much more to work. It gives the company more to work with. It keeps them motivated. It keeps them focused on solving customer problems. And then as a marketer, it just gives you a great foundation to work with, because yes, you want to talk about products and how good they are, but more than anything, you want to talk about brands and the connections that they can drive with communities, with individuals, with customers, and with non-customers.
Yeah, that's awesome. I mean, how do you feel that that purpose informed the company before COVID? I mean, was it, I guess, a North Star? It sort of informed much of your marketing thinking. Correct? Yeah.
I'll start with, every conversation at Intuit starts with, what's the problem we're trying to solve? What's the insight with the customer? Everyone says that in all of companies, but I've never seen it so prevalent as it is at Intuit. So when you get into a conversation, whether it can be a brainstorm or a literally strategic planning exercise, it's what are we doing to solve a customer problem? What's the insights that's driving this recommendation? And then you go back to, okay, well, then what is our mission? Our mission, as you said, Susan, is to empower prosperity around the world, for everyone around the world. And it's primarily financial prosperity, but that prosperity can be everything from your tax check refund, or it can be saving costs with your small business. As you know, we have consumers, we have small businesses, and self-employed. So really, for decades, the products that we built, the technology that we build it around, how we communicate with our customers, how we get them the checks that they get, is driven by how do we power prosperity and how we make it easier for them, put some money in their pocket as easy as possible, so that they can go on and live the rest of their life and have confidence with the finances. Because it's interesting, finance is often seen in the world of marketing as a good place to work and sometimes a bad place to work, right? But finances are what kind of the thread that keeps economies moving. And so we feel very good about what we do on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah, I mean, that's really great to just even hear that sort of cultural anecdote, because I mean, like you, we are big believers in purpose not being something that are just words on a wall.
Yeah.
But actually, actions that are lived and demonstrated every day, and brand action. So, can you give us some examples of how Intuit takes specific actions that bring to life your purpose?
Yep. I mean, I couldn't have been more proud of the company from the top down, from Sasan Goodarzi, our CEO, down to the marketing team than what happened after COVID hit. And what happened is, immediately we looked at ourselves and said, what can we do to help people through these very tough times? Day one, week one, and now we're in month 6. And the things that we've done runs the gamut. So the marketing campaign that we've been running at Intuit, under Intuit brand, has been largely under the theme of Together We Prosper. So let's first start with some of the work that we've done and promoted. There's a product that was developed within weeks called the Intuit Aid Assist. And it was a website that people could go to and they could find, are they eligible, for the PPP loans? How do they register for the stimulus package? So that was a product that was created. It was for customers and non-customers, because we wanted to make sure that some people didn't get left out. So that product was created, we promoted that product, and it went very, very well. And it continues to run, and we continue to add functionality. So that's a product, and then that's marketing. From a marketing, for other product standpoints, other efforts that aren't marketing related, we did a GoFundMe campaign to help small businesses. We continue to do what we call prosperity pop-ups, where people have the opportunity we highlight small businesses that are still doing well, that we're trying to help as much as possible, and have that come through our business. And we promote that wherever we possibly can. And then the thread of the work that my team is really starting to promote more than anything is under financial guidance, which is if you're a small business, if you're a consumer, if you're self-employed, if you're unemployed and trying to, if you're trying to get on top of your money, you can go to this website, intuit.com/financial tips, and get lessons from other customers within the, many, many millions of customers that are Intuit customers.
Yeah, that's so interesting because, I mean, through this over the last few months, we've seen that companies that have like really strong and clear purposes and know what their North Star is, were able to immediately take action.
Yeah.
And they knew exactly what to do. Whereas, in other cases, a lot of people, hung back and were on the sidelines because they really didn't know what to do. So this is a perfect example of a company that if you've got a clear North Star, you immediately know what to do.
And if you don't mind, if I could jump in there for a second, one of our big things, we do processes called follow me homes. That's not happening right now. That's been the historic term, where everyone is trained to follow customers home and then understand their lives and understand their pain points. Across the board, again, from every time Sasan speaks, our CEO, he says that he's in touch with multiple customers on a daily basis. And that's still happening across the organization. So we continue to engage in conversations however possible to learn from how are they doing, what are their pain points, how can we help them with the current products that we have, and or are there other products that we might be able to develop? And some of them are as basic as communication tools. How do small businesses talk to each other? So we've been working through a bunch of solutions, either expanding on current solutions or coming up with new solutions for our customers, but mainly because of the contact we have with our customers.
That's amazing. Yeah, no, the power of listening is amazing. So I'm going to take a little bit of a turn now. Have you seen differences in how purpose comes to life externally versus internally? I mean, you talked a little bit about the internal just now. How does it work how does it motivate your employees to want to come to work every day? How do they live it no matter what their job is? Not a CEO, not a marketing person.
Mm-hmm.
How does purpose actually activate culture and your employees, particularly during stressful times?
I think I'll take it through a few different lenses, and when you hear, and I don't want to be overly critical of any brand out there, is their brand trying to highlight their purpose externally now to get credit for having purpose.
Yep.
For decades, we never talked about our purpose externally. Prosperity itself is a very odd word. It means a lot, when you're talking and Sasan is on stage, Laura Balash is on stage, other people are on stage, and you can say, hey, our goal is to power prosperity, and you have opportunity to explain it. But for many decades, we use it as an internal rallying cry for why we came to work every day. And I think all 10,000 people would not say that they know the mission, but they're acting on the mission. The interesting thing now to the third part of that is there are some brands who are talking about it, for lack of a better term, to get it. We're talking about it because it kind of helps explain some of what we're doing. It allows us to have a thread externally. In some ways, it allows us to, again, finally get credit maybe for a mission that's been internally, but we're also, I don't want to say shy, but we don't love the idea of over promoting our mission on a broad basis because that's not our goal. Our goal isn't for people to be like, oh, they power prosperity. I love them. Our goal is to just deliver it every single day through our products. Mm-hmm. So it's been an interesting trend in the discussion of how clear do we want to talk about our mission externally. Prosperity is a long-term vision. Right now, people are in very short-term pains. So we have to be very careful with language. Words matter. We have to be very careful that we're not trying to promote ourselves so that people who maybe didn't know us before feel good just about our mission. We still have to pay it off with good action. So I think it's that constant balance of not only what do you believe, the thing we talk about all the time is don't just say what you believe, say what you do. And so we try to promote our actions. And if at the end of our actions, people say, wow, they're doing good in the world, then we feel good about it versus us saying we believe in good in the world.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Do something, then talk about it.
Exactly.
It's funny because it's such a, some people often confuse being purpose driven with doing some CSR.
Yeah.
And I think as you've just talked about, like purpose is at the heart of the business model. And that's where it really, is effective and it works. So it really sounds like, Intuit for a long time has really understood and lived that it works when it's at the heart, really the heart of how you.
But it's so interesting. When I first joined, they were in the midst of a basically CSR-driven campaign. And so I'm going to sound like I contradict myself or talking out of both sides. Is I joined the company because of its mission. Our immediate campaign was a CSR campaign under the idea of Together We Prosper and the prosperity hubs that we hopefully can talk about. But I also said, I don't want this brand to be just about CSR. Like, I didn't come to be a CSR brand marketer. I came to promote the value that we do through our products, through our services, through everything. So you're absolutely right, is, we don't want to just do CSR. We want to show threads, but we want to celebrate who we are and what we're trying to accomplish for the world.
Yeah. Well, actually, I fully intended my next question to be about the prosperity hubs. So tell us a little bit about them, and then I'm going to I will have a follow-up question about, I think they're sort of foreshadowing maybe the future of Purpose and Purpose 2.0. So, but first for everyone, if you could just tell us a little bit more about your prosperity hubs.
Yeah, there are a handful. Right now, I think they're in 7 cities in the US and Canada, where we go into a city, we help with job creation, we help with financial management, financial tools. And we do that because we just feel like these are the communities that are the ones that drive our business. And then the more that we can invest in those communities. So we call them prosperity hubs. Right. So far, I think the statistics, and I've got a couple right here, is we've created 2,200 jobs in 7 communities. We have a goal of increasing that number to 7,000 by 2025. So that's job creation. But more importantly, as importantly, is we're trying to help people prepare for other jobs. So not only are the jobs we're creating, but we believe that we've given 150,000 people, statistics show, better tools to go out and find jobs. And of course, we want to expand that into the future. The interesting thing is we're also trying to figure out how to go virtually, right? So how do we not only, go in, build a building, bring some people in, teach them financial skills, help them work for Intuit, and then or get other jobs, but how do we do that virtually? So that's one of the things we're really trying to transition to. How do we do it, in person as well as virtually? But we feel these are things that we've been doing for multiple years. We've seen great success. We felt very good about our investment in the communities. We feel very good about the job creation, and we're going to continue to do it. It's good for the economy. It's good for our business, but more importantly, it's good for the world.
Yeah. No, that's awesome. And that actually starts, I think, to answer the, question as we talk about, the future of purpose, like what's Purpose 2.0, beyond even actions. We talk a lot about impact and actually measuring impact. And it sounds like, what you're doing with the prosperity hubs is you are actually beginning to measure the impact and making a difference. So, beyond just that, are there other thoughts you all have had in terms of how to measure impact going forward?
Yeah. So to expand a little bit on where you were going, as far as we have some things called True North goals, and some of the statistics I said, and of course there's others. What is the impact we're having on communities? How are we doing in the world of job creation? How are we doing in the world of job preparation? So those are some of the different ways we measure. We want to make sure that the money we're putting into it and the resources is having an impact. From a brand standpoint, our focus has been on reputation, which is really interesting. I was raised under the brand equity and health measurement, right? Are you relevant? Are you unique? Do people see you as differentiating and things like that? And I still believe in those studies. Those are very powerful studies, brand health, brand equity. But we've decided more to focus on brand reputation. And it goes back to one of my earlier statements of emotional connection. So can you measure, which we can through a partner that we work with, if you can measure your brand reputation, we have fundamental studies that also shows that can impact your business. So it's the emotional connection that people have with you because of, do they think your products and services are good? I mean, it starts with that. Do they get value out of your products and services? Do they think you're innovative? Do they think you have good leadership? Do they think you have good corporate responsibility? Do they think you have good workplace? So it really starts to expand beyond just the product-driven brand values and brand equity into the company-driven products and services, innovation, and what you stand for in this world. And then it feeds back to data that we get that says, are we moving the needle in our reputation, with the belief that will also move our business?
Yeah, that's terrific. It's really interesting. Particularly since a number of those things relate to almost corporate character.
Yes.
And the shadow of the tree of corporate character. So,
but it's interesting. We've got a publicly stated bold. We have 3 publicly stated bold goals that go to Wall Street, that talk about what we're doing for small businesses, what we're doing in consumer savings, and what we're doing in the world of building brand reputation. So we feel that positive about those 3 areas and that doing good in the world is something that that our investors care about, and that will impact our business.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Absolutely. And the more, and Larry Fink talks about it every day, right? In terms of, how BlackRock looks at their investments. So
it's fantastic. That's music to my ears when someone that sits on top of that much money is talking about utilizing their dollars with the best investments.
Yeah, absolutely. So just again, another angle on purpose that might interest, I'm sure people would love to hear about from you. At the end of the day, your customers judge you by how they experience you, by real customer experience, not what you say. So certainly you're doing lots of great actions, but how do you make sure that, sort of your everyday marketing stays as authentic as possible?
Yeah. I mean, well, one, we try, we most often only use, or not, we most often use in our advertising, right? When you see someone using the product, obviously there's things that we do in TurboTax, things that we do in QuickBooks, where we might promote the value proposition to a certain degree, but as often as possible, if it's supposed to be a customer, it is a customer. So number one is our authenticity comes from the fact that it's our customers that are online, not actors talking about the value that they're getting. So from a marketing standpoint, that's that. The next step is our value proposition. In a world of marketing where you can always be, your message can be a little step ahead of where your product is right now. We talk about, all the goofy terms of reasons to believe, but our reasons to believe have to be embedded in our marketing. So we only speak what we can deliver on right now, how that ladders to more money in your pocket, easier, less time spent managing your finances, or more confidence in managing your finances. I kind of just gave a quick nod to TurboTax, QuickBooks, and Mint, our 3 products, but we want to make sure that if we're telling someone to engage with these products, that the insights that we're using in that marketing, the pain points that we're talking about in that marketing are real pain points, are real insights. And then when they start to use the products, they're going to experience a product that is exactly what they saw and was marketing through the value proposition work that we do.
Yeah, no, that's great. I know real small business owners are so much more interesting, actually, than anything you could make up or cast for. So, that's really great.
I saw 4 videos this morning of what the pain points that people have because of COVID, because of the financial situation the downturn that we're in right now, and that messaging is what's going to trade into our financial guidance work that should be coming out in the next couple of weeks.
Yeah, that's amazing. Has there ever been a time when, like, there's been some misses or some gaps where you feel like you did some things, or that was not aligned with the purpose, or somehow the purpose sent you to a wrong place? Like, was there anything that you learned from that could be helpful for everyone else to hear about?
I mean, I don't know if I would call it a miss, but let's say it's just a lens that we're working through, which is a combination of, we are in very tough times, but they're also changing every single day. We want to make sure that the message put out is relevant for today, but also for tomorrow. We don't want to make it look like we're overreacting, but we should be overreacting because these are very hard times. But I guess my message is this, as much as anything, is in a world where mission-driven, purpose-driven marketing is often about the future, we very quickly realize, that messaging, which we always knew from my earlier point, that prosperity is a hard message. It's a hard word to communicate externally. Some people aren't looking a month down the road. Some people aren't looking 3 months down the road. Whereas we might be often, talking about the promise of, or how do we help you get to the next level, or, to the next day, is really, we need to hang her down and talk about today. So I guess as much as anything is, even though mission and vision is a little bit more long-term, internal, communicating that externally might not resonate at a time where people are just looking, how do they survive the day? How do they survive the week? How do they survive the month? And so I wouldn't say we had a miss, but we very quickly had to check ourselves to make sure that what seemed visionary is more about less visionary and more about today.
Yeah. That was actually going to be my build on that, which is, what have you learned through this time in terms of, keeping your purpose, meaningful and relevant? And has it given you any ideas about how you need to maybe evolve it a little bit? I mean, the focus on the now is really interesting. But do you feel like you might make any adjustments in terms of how you look at your purpose going forward, or how do you make it, meaningful and relevant? Like, or is there like a what's next off of this?
I think, one of the things we're talking about is, well, one, it's the age old, don't talk about your mission if your products can't pay it off, right? I mean, ultimately, even if we don't use the word TurboTax or QuickBooks or Mint in our messaging, those who know that those products come from Intuit, if they don't feel as though this purpose that we're talking about is somehow connected to those products, it all falls apart. So that's kind of step one. Step two is, in a world where one of the products I mentioned earlier, Intuit Aid Assist, was a cross-company effort, not delivered through any one, segment group or any one business. I guess what the key is, where can we work as a company to try to connect the back end of a lot of these products? So we're doing a lot in the world of technology that will allow us to hopefully do more from a business value and extract, in a conversation standpoint with our current customers that will allow us to talk about Intuit and the connection with those brands, both from a what those brands and those products do on a day-to-day basis, as well as behind the scenes, how do you get more value from them? And that could be from the technology, that could be from our live offerings. We have people that you can talk to about your taxes, that you can talk to about your financial accounting. So really what we're trying to do is, as much as anything, the shorthand of that is not just talk about the now, but talk about the connection behind the scenes with the businesses, or even within the businesses, so that people can get more value across the products, not just individual product at a time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
We use the word platform a lot, and platform is a very interesting word in business as well as in marketing. But the more that we can connect the platform and get more value to customers more quickly, that's what we're trying to do, and that connects to our vision.
Yeah, that's really interesting. Here's a personal question. What purpose brands do you admire, and who do you draw inspiration from? I guess that's not that personal. It's okay.
Yeah, it's personal in the sense that, I spent 14 years, as Kayla said, at Visa.
Yeah.
And I'll go to the dark side of Visa. Is many people around the world, and I worked in 3 different countries for them, if you say, what is Visa? They're going to say a credit card company. And they weren't. They're the financial processor behind electronic payments. So it was very interesting because the reason I stayed at Visa is because their job, their mission was to be the best way to pay for everyone everywhere. And they raised all boats. They raised economies. And so I really appreciated by the fact that easier transactions, easier way to pay does good for the world. So, the reason I went to that part about credit cards is they're not a credit card, nothing wrong with credit card companies. Those are financial tools that people need. But the value of Visa was because they could connect payment systems and make it easier to transact and exchange value. So I really admired the brand, and I really admired my time at that company. Another company is Microsoft. It's kind of a safe thing to say, but they've also been around for 4 or 5 decades, and they've been crushing it, not just in their introduction of new products, but just what they stand for. And I think they continue to evolve their business. They can be in gaming, they can be in basic communications, or they can be, your technology system on your computer. But I just think they've done a very good job of, every day, putting out great products that make it easier to do your job and easier to communicate and have some fun. But still somehow they all make sense together, because there are some times where, you put a brand over here because it doesn't relate to the broader business. But I can completely see how Windows connects to Xbox. I completely do, and I think the fact that they can have a brand, a master brand behind a gaming console, as well as, what you do on your computer with Word and Excel, I think they're pretty impressive. So I enjoyed my time at Visa. I enjoyed the vision and the mission they had and how they drove that through their products and their communications. And I've just always admired from the outside. And I know a few friends at Microsoft also what they do on a day-to-day basis.
Cool. Well, that's great. I'm going to have one last question, and then I'm going to take some questions from the audience. You sort of alluding to it a little bit just now. Like, what advice do you have for fellow marketers that are sort of grappling with, brand level purpose versus corporate purpose, and sort of how are those different, and how do you put all that together?
I think Intuit is a corporate brand. It is the founding company. It is the company that you go work for. It is the stock that you might invest in. It's what you wear on your shirt if you go to work, and you're very proud to work on it. So I don't want to say it's easier, but it has more, there's more value, or you can see the purpose of it, talking about purpose driven for a corporate brand. But, whereas the TurboTax, QuickBooks, and Mint products, they're trying to engage with their consumer, get increased engagement, and then of course in a corporate world and for-profit world, trying to get people to pay for those products. You want to find that thread. I think in today's world, let's go to cars, where people want to buy the best car at the best price that does does everything they want. If they feel as though that behind that product is a brand that has value, I believe you're going to have better engagement. I'm going to believe you're going to have more sales. I think you're going to have more long-term value. So I think the lifetime value of a customer who buys a product, not because it just delivers great rational value proposition, but it connects to that purpose. So I think the key thing that we're working on, and it's not easy, is when TurboTax is doing what they're trying to do for their customers, which they do very, very well, while also somehow connecting it to the purpose that is Intuit. I think that's the hard work, but that's also the magic that is created. So I think I would start with the corporate brand and think about how you connect to the product or kind of brands that are really driving the revenues.
Mm-hmm. That's really a great answer. Now we have some questions from the audience. So let's see. Oh, this is an interesting one. How has your leadership style changed over the past? Have you been able to develop more personal relationships with your colleagues?
I've always hopefully practiced and believed that, good management starts with a trusting relationship between the manager and the person on the team, right? If they know that you've got their back, you care about their development, you want them to learn, and you want them to do the best work of their life, that's good management. It's good leadership. In some ways, obviously, it's a lot harder. I'm very personable. I like to sit in rooms. I like to look someone in the eye, and I like to get physically close when allowable and when safe. That's impossible right now. But what we've done is, my team, in an interesting way, because it's virtual, has found ways to connect that we never would before. We do a weekly challenge, and it's everything from what's your favorite place you've ever, visited? What's the first car that you had? We do all these different things, and we're learning about each other, that things that we would never have learned in a corporate environment. And so I think more than anything is where I've always asked the question, how are you doing? How is your family? It's even more importantly now, how are you managing through these times? Having that conversation first, but then also finding other fun ways to engage and to learn about each other. And I know more about my team than I ever did before. I know a woman on my team had a 1994 Ford Aerostar, green. That was her first car, where she would use to change for soccer, to change for in her job at the Red Lobster. And so now I know what her first job was. Now I know what sport she played in high school, and now I know what her first car was. And so it's just kind of that fun little thing. And the fact that she's willing to share that information, and then I hopefully can retain it. It deepens the relationship a lot. So but you got to take the time, and virtually it's harder, but it's more important than ever to take the time to get to know your team.
Yeah, no, that's really resonates. Here's another question. Okay, so referring to purpose marketing, what, in your opinion, are the best channels for brands to communicate with consumers? How can they resonate with people in an authentic, genuine way? Well, we talked about that second one, but the question, I guess, is really, what do you think the best channels are for brands to communicate?
Yeah, and I listened to Alan, the person from Church's Chicken, before, and he answered social, and I would say wherever there's a way to have a two-way dialogue. Mm-hmm. I believe in the power of the megaphone that is TV. That's a one-way channel, right? It's the megaphone. It gets your message out. It drives your awareness, which is important to us. It drives familiarity with what your products are and what your brand is, but it doesn't allow for that two-way conversation. So whether it's our websites where people can go and learn, the blog that I talked about, the financial tips one, or it's through social. So the majority of the marketing of the Intuit brand is on social channels. And it's as much as the fact that, besides the fact that right now more people are spending 30, 40, 50% more time online than they were before, we just feel like it's mainly because of the two-way dialogue that is possible.
Mm-hmm. Okay, interesting. Okay, here's another question. As leaders, you are always developing your abilities. What skills would you like your marketing team to develop this year?
I think it's really interesting. And Kayla alluded to my time at ANZ Bank is, I'm going to answer this in a not long but slightly roundabout way, is some of my favorite time at ANZ Bank was when you pull the lever to put a message into market through a certain channel and hoped you would get a response of either someone applying for a credit card, taking out a personal loan, or whatever it was that I was doing at the time. That's performance-driven marketing. And in the world of brand marketing, it's a little bit harder to know what's the impact that you have tomorrow. And I'm trying to work with myself and my team to find that middle ground. Is, I don't want to just do brand marketing that is purpose-driven marketing, and then once a quarter you get a result that says, hey, guess what? People love you more than they did a day ago. Okay, that's nice. But in a world of, we still need to drive value and we still need to grow the business, we need to figure out ways from a performance marketing standpoint, from a technology standpoint, is, are people getting our message tomorrow? Are they thinking differently about Intuit than they did before? Are they thinking differently about our other brands, QuickBooks, TurboTax, and Mint? And are they likely to take action? And so what we're trying to do is thread the needle of, brand marketing and reputation building with performance marketing to say, how do you drive action tomorrow? So we're trying to find that middle ground, and so we can be more responsive in our own work, but also show business driving value.
Mm-hmm. Really interesting. How about how important are partnerships to what you do, and how do you think about partnerships?
Yeah. Partnerships, they're incredibly important and they're incredibly hard because you got to think about what's the value. Intuit, as I've alluded a couple of times, we don't have a lot of awareness as a brand. People know our product brands very, very well. Not a lot of people know Intuit at this stage, or at least as a kind of a product-driven, mission-driven company. So partnerships can help you note that I was watching a soccer game yesterday. And part of me was like, oh, there's a good partnership there. We could put our name on a jersey. Okay, for value one. But really, if you go back to, the dollar spent to promote a partnership, to promote prosperity, and to get another dollar in someone's pocket, to make it a little bit easier to make that dollar and or get them more financial confidence, you have to be with partners that live and breathe that same idea. And so, as much as there's means that we will use to build awareness and familiarity, I don't think we'll take action, with a partner if we don't also believe that they have a very similar mission to hopefully, in the world of financial management, help their customers.
Yeah, no, shared. Yeah, it sounds like shared values is going to be one of the.
Yeah,
they
might be able to deliver in spades against one of our key outcome metrics.
Yeah.
But if they don't have that shared value, it'd be very hard for me to want to partner with that group.
Yeah. That's great. Well, I think I have one more. I think it looks like one more audience question. What trends in consumer behavior are of particular importance to you now? And how are they consuming media differently? Actually, sort of two very different questions. It's really, what trends in consumer behavior are of particular importance to you now?
I think I'm going to go back to the core, it's interest to me, but also interest to the company, which is some combination of, it feels so cliche to say e-commerce, but electronic commerce is exploding because people aren't able to go out to the stores as much as they were before. So that's number one. But then there's financial management. And I think, a lot of people, / maybe 100% of people are saying, what is my financial state? How do I ensure that I'm where I need to be? And or how do I ensure that I'm on the path where I need to be? So I think, and a lot of that is happening digitally. And so I think people are, both shopping and buying and exchanging value in ways that they never did before, or in ways that they didn't do it as much before, but also managing their finances. I think those two things are going to come really, really, really close together. I think everyone says they want that one-stop shop of they see where the money's going out and they see where that money's coming in. That might not be 100% true. I think most people and insights show that they like to have it in slightly different places, but they still want that one lens. They don't want to have to be going to 20 different sites to not only buy things, but also understand their current financial situation. So the shorthand of that is commerce and finances. We knew it was changing the last decade, and I think it's going to accelerate by light years because of what's going on right now.
It also feels like sort of there's like new needs and new feelings have emerged
Yes.
that weren't there before. So that really actually creates an opportunity for different ways of thinking about products and services and support and help that maybe builds more resilience into the future or builds,
Absolutely.
Builds more strength. So
there's still going to be a largely huge human element to it, but there's going to be a huge technology element, and it's going to have to solve some of those needs, like you said, or those concerns that we didn't know of 6 months ago.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I see Kyla, so I think that's
Is that the signal?
But anyway, Steve, it's such a pleasure.
Enjoyed it, Susan. Thank you so much.
It was terrific. Kyla, I think you're going to wrap us up, right?
Thank you. Thanks, Stephen. Thanks, Susan. Stephen, I actually really loved your point about measurement and kind of the focus or pivot on that. And do you think that was hard to, particularly for purpose-driven brands? Sometimes I don't think that there's alignment between sort of, the vision and then how you're then measured against that. Was that difficult to sort of navigate internally or pivot to that focus of reputation?
I don't think it was necessarily hard, except for the fact that, the traditional brand metrics are ones that are either lagging,
right,
or slow in moving, or not measured that often. Whereas
right.
direct marketing and performance marketing are the numbers that you see every single day. And so I think, if you challenge people to say, hey, we're going to build a brand, but we want to show that it has value to people and value to businesses, and we need to show it on a more rapid form, that is challenging.
Right.
So I don't think anyone disagreed with that theme or that principle. It was just like, but I'm used to talking to vendor X, I won't name names, and they'll come back in 3 months and say whether or not brand love went up 2% or down 2%. You're like,
right.
what is that a correlation? Is that a correlation, a causation? Or is it a leading, or is it a lagging? And then you start to blow mine. So it was easy question, very hard answer.
Yeah. No, that's great. No, thank you so much for today. It was an absolute pleasure to have you on board. And Susan, great job as always as moderating. I think it was a really great way to end out the session, and lots and lots of really interesting sort of consistent themes in your conversation that we've heard sort of throughout the session as well today. Honesty, authenticity, transparency, being true to your values. And I think, Stephen, you and actually Harriet both mentioned this, what you do is more important than what you say, and the notion around that. So
yeah, we won't even allow our internal documents to say we believe in. I believe in love and happiness. I have my entire life. That doesn't mean I'm, hopefully doing something positive about it also.
That's awesome. Thank you so much. Thanks, Stephen. But no, all in all, great advice for, purpose-driven brands. But, as I said earlier and a few times today throughout this afternoon, it's really great advice for all brands, really. It's a great foundation. So thanks, everyone. Thanks to all the, special thanks to the speakers and moderators for today. Hope you will join us again for our next Brand Innovator Livecast. Tomorrow is 1 p.m. ET. It's on digital marketing innovation. We will be joined by leaders from McCormack, Cricket Wireless, Marcus Hotels, and more. So another great session for tomorrow. So be sure to tune in. So thanks everyone for joining. Have a great rest of your day and week. See you again